Chapter 132. Tan Xiao said in a deep tone, "You just said that the customer is God. This is what I mean, and I hope you can do as I say. If my apprentice really can't keep up with the speed teaching course, then we'll draw up a new teaching plan. I told you that the price is negotiable." Li Liping hesitated. She could feel the seriousness in Tan Xiao's attitude. But she couldn't figure out why this young man before her was so confident. What did he just say? Apprentice? Could it be that the child she wants to hire is this young man's apprentice? What a weirdo. Li Liping cursed a few times in her heart before she nodded and said, "I understand what you mean. Please wait for a moment. I'll immediately discuss your request with the teachers here. After we draw up the teaching plan, I'll show it to you." Tan Xiao said in a deep tone, "I want the best teachers here. If anyone tries to make up the numbers, be careful or you'll ruin the reputation of your new idea training class." You? Upon hearing Tan Xiao's words, Li Liping almost thought that Tan Xiao came to deliberately cause trouble. She secretly took a deep breath and said with all seriousness, "You can rest assured that all the teachers here are excellent. And the one I choose for you will also be the best." After saying that, she turned around and walked inside. Tan Xiao's eyes retracted from her back and looked at the receptionist lady serving hot tea. Tan Xiao nodded and took out his mobile phone to dial Kong Xiao's number. "What's your instruction, boss?" Kong Xiao's voice came from the phone. Moreover, there were a lot of noises coming from the inside. Apparently, Kong Xiao was in a very noisy place. "I need to talk to you about something." "Where are you?" Tan Xiao said. "I'm at the talent market, boss." Kong Xiao said, "We're establishing a company and need to recruit a lot of employees. I only brought 3 people from the capital, which is far from enough. Tell me the address and I'll come to you now." Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment and then said, "All right. I'm going to deal with some trivial matters now. I'll come to you after I'm done with it. I'll also see what the job fair looks like." "That's right. Send me the address later." "Okay." Kong Xiao replied with a smile. Half an hour later, Li Liping came to Tan Xiao with the 3 middle-aged men and women. Then, she handed Tan Xiao a copy of their teaching plan and said, "This is the teaching plan we've formulated according to your requirements. Please take a look first. What I need to say in advance is that your requirements are very tight, and you have too little time. The number of lessons you teach every day is very large, so I hope you are mentally prepared." After looking through it, Tan Xiao nodded and said, "I'm not very good at teaching, so you can do as you see fit. That's it for now. I'll make some adjustments based on the situation. How much is it? I'll pay you now." This, Li Liping hesitated. After all, this was the first time she had encountered such a strange client. Moreover, the requirements were much more than their ordinary lectures, and the time was also very different. For a moment, she really didn't know how to quote a price. Tan Xiao was puzzled. "What? Didn't you guys discuss the amount of money just now? And you seem to be the boss here, right? Even you can't decide the price?" Li Liping forced a smile and said, "Mr. Tang, your requirements are too unconventional. I don't know how much I should charge you for the time being. How about this? Let's go to class tomorrow first. We'll talk about the fee after tomorrow's class is over." "All right," Tan Xiao said. "You decide on this." Li Liping quickly said, "But can you pay a part of the deposit first? We'll quote the price after tomorrow's class is over. If you're satisfied, we'll sign a contract. If you're not satisfied, then we'll give you tomorrow's class for free. Furthermore, we will also return the deposit we received to you." "How much do you want?" Tan Xiao asked. Li Liping was silent for a moment and then said, 5,000 yuan. "What do you think?" Tan Xiao nodded. He took out his wallet and was about to take out his bank card to swipe it. Suddenly, he found that he should have enough cash, so he took out all of it. After counting it, it was exactly 5,000 yuan. "Here you go." Li Liping took the 5,000 yuan cash. She was watching when Tan Xiao was counting the money, so she didn't count it in front of Tan Xiao. Instead, she said with a smile, "Mr. Tang, please wait a moment. I'll ask someone from the finance department to give you a receipt." Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, "No need to give me a receipt. Also, we don't need to sign any contract. I don't think it's necessary. You're an educator, while I'm doing this for my child. We should maintain the most basic trust between us. Just tell me the price tomorrow and I'll directly transfer the money to you. Later, you can send a teacher to my place to teach every day. What's your address? Li Liping asked. Tan Xiao said, It's not far from here. It's the last building number in Southgate Town. I still have things to do, so I won't bother you anymore. Goodbye. Southgate Town? The last building number? Li Liping's pupils shrunk as she looked at Tan Xiao's back as he left. Her heartbeat suddenly sped up. She had been to Southgate Town before because her family had a rich relative who lived there. She knew that it was the most luxurious villa complex in the entire Star City. Even when she was a guest at her relative's house, she had heard her relative talk about something. The best view building in the entire villa complex was the King Villa, which was the last building number. Mr. Tang, I'll send you off. Li Liping's complexion changed a few times as she strode to catch up. At the same place, the three middle-aged teachers looked at each other in dismay. Tan Xiao politely refused, but Li Liping was too enthusiastic. She insisted on sending Tan Xiao to the entrance on the first floor of the office building. Then, she said with a smile, Take care, Mr. Tang. Tan Xiao nodded. Under Li Liping's watchful gaze, he walked to the roadside and stopped a taxi, quickly disappearing at the end of the street in the distance. Weirdo. What a weirdo. He can live in the most luxurious villa in Southgate Town, yet he doesn't even have a car. He even needs to take a taxi to go out. Li Liping shook her head as she secretly cursed inside. Star City Talent Market. In the spacious market hall, hundreds of stalls were crowded with people. Since this job fair was a large-scale job fair hosted by the major enterprises in the Shuangqing province to the whole country, and the venue was set up in Star City, nearly 100,000 college graduates, unemployed employees, and other talents from all walks of life had gathered here. Coincidentally, the magnificent Tang Corporation was preparing to set up a company and happened to encounter this large-scale job fair. Therefore, Kong Xia found a good location for a stall and even personally came to oversee it. When Tan Xiao arrived at the Star City Talent Market, he was immediately shocked by the scene in front of him. Although it was already in the afternoon, it was still overcrowded. Nowadays, the most worthless people are college students. Tan Xiao suddenly recalled the words that Yuan Zhenren had once complained in his ear. He immediately nodded in agreement. Many students had studied hard for more than 10 years. But in the end, they still had to go from house to house to apply for jobs. Perhaps in the past, studying was the only way out. But now, even if one had a high diploma, everything would be in vain if one didn't have the ability. According to the exact location given by Kong Xia, Tan Xiao found the stall belonging to the magnificent Tang Corporation. In the stall of more than 10 square meters, Kong Xia and another cute and petite blonde girl were sitting on the inside of the podium, interviewing a young man who looked like a student. There were also two foreign men who were sorting out the information inside. There was also a long line behind the interviewee. Tan Xiao glanced at it and found that the line was at least 20 meters long. Boss. Upon seeing Tan Xiao's arrival, Kong Xia immediately got up and called out, Boss. The golden-haired lowly also stood up and shouted. There was a curious look in her eyes as she looked at Tan Xiao over and over again. Tan Xiao nodded to the two, waved his hand and said, Kong Xia, give the job to someone else first. I have something to tell you. Understood. Kong Xia exhorted Andy at her side and let the blonde youth behind her take over her work. Then she called Tan Xiao to the stall. Boss, what do you want me to tell you? Tan Xiao said, I'll leave two things to you. First, Long Zhengyu will transfer me a sum of money, which I got. I don't know the specific amount, but I'll immediately transfer it to you when the money arrives. Second, Long Zhengyu and his two friends from the capital are going to implement a big project in Star City. They said that the total investment is estimated to be 5 billion yuan, and if they encounter a funding problem later, it will be increased. They want me to draw the building design for them and promise to give me 10% of the shares. After I give them the design, you'll follow up on the follow-up issues of this matter. 10%. Kong Xia looked at Tan Xiao with an incredulous expression. She was shocked by the news. A design could get 10% of the shares? Moreover, The investment funds were already 5 billion yuan. It was hard for her to imagine what kind of design was worth such a high price. Boss, are you sure it's shares? Not profit dividends? Kong Xia quickly asked. With a puzzled expression, Tan Xiao asked, what's the difference between shares and profit dividends? Kong Xia was secretly speechless. Only now did she realize that this boss of hers really knew nothing about doing business. After organizing the words in her mind, she explained, the building that is about to be built, if you don't sell it and keep it as your property, then you'll own 10% of the wealth of this building. Later, if you sell the building, you'll get 10% of the total sale price. If you directly sell it after it's built, then the investment funds will be deducted. 10% of the project's profit will be the dividend. I think you should ask about this matter first, and then I'll know how to contact them. Chapter 133. Tan Xiao fished out his mobile phone and dialed Long Zhengyu's number. After asking about this issue, he said after getting a reply, I have time tomorrow. Let's meet and talk about other things. All right, I've chosen the land and am waiting to buy it. Come with me tomorrow, said Long Zhengyu. All right. The call ended. Tan Xiao said, Long Zhengyu said that the building won't be sold directly after it's built, but will be rented to the public. The annual rent will be divided into dividends. If I need to sell the whole building one day, I can still get 10% of the income. Kong Xia incredulously said, Boss, why do I have a feeling that Long Zhengyu is not buying the design from you, but deliberately giving you money? You can feel it? Tan Xiao was surprised. Kong Xia was speechless. She asked, Boss, I don't understand what you said. Do you know that Long Zhengyu is deliberately giving you money? Tan Xiao let out a trace of a smile and said, Long Zhengyu's two friends from the imperial capital are very interesting. I've never seen them before, and I don't even know anything about them. They want to make friends with me because of Long Zhengyu's evaluation of me. This 10% of the shares is their way of showing goodwill to me. What? Kong Xia was dumbfounded. She looked at Tan Xiao with a ghostly expression. She never dreamed that she would hear such a reply. Just to make friends, he wanted to use at least 500 million yuan to show goodwill? Idle. God! Jack, who had just replaced Kong Xia to interview the staff, turned his head and said with worship, while Kesford, who was sorting out the documents at the side, couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Andy, who looked like a doll, was already dumbfounded when she turned around. Her round eyes were shining brightly. The three of them didn't know much about Tan Xiao, but through the exchange between Tan Xiao and Kong Xia, Tan Xiao had shocked the three of them. It even made them have a strong sense of worship toward Tan Xiao from the bottom of their hearts. Tan Xiao faintly smiled and continued, I've told you everything I should. How's the recruitment going? Kong Xia shook her head and said, We've only recruited ordinary employees now. The best ones we've found are several department heads and deputy managers. As for the managers of the various departments and important leaders of the company, none of them had been recruited. Andy could be in charge of the publicity department, Jack was an elite in the planning department, and Kesford was an expert in the logistics department. They had been with me for several years and had achieved outstanding results. But it's still a long way from being qualified for a position in our company. Tan Xiao smiled and said, No hurry. Take your time. As long as we offer a high enough salary, I believe that there will be many talented people who will recommend themselves and join us. Upon hearing it, Kong Xia glanced outside a few times and suddenly said in a low voice, Speaking of talents, I found a good one. Take a look at that middle-aged man with an abject appearance outside. I know him. He used to be someone I admired. Tan Xiao asked in surprise, Who is he? If he's really as amazing as you said, why would he come to the talent market to find a job? I've heard about him. He used to be in the United States. Not only is he a genius in sales, but he's also a computer expert, said Kong Xia. He once made a high-end cosmetics brand in the United States sell their products all over the world, causing the total assets of that company to skyrocket by 1,000 times in just 6 years. However, 5 years ago, he used a computer network to invade a technology company's internal system and stole the company's most confidential information, resulting in him being arrested and imprisoned. I have no idea when he returned to China, nor why he came to the talent market to recruit a job. Tan Xiu frowned and asked in a low voice, "Why don't you directly throw an olive branch to such a talented person?" "I only know that he's very amazing," said Kang Xia, shaking her head. "But I'm a bit worried about other aspects. So I'm going to figure it out and then throw an olive branch to him." Tan Xiu looked at the middle-aged man standing in the queue. After pondering for a moment, he slowly said, "How about I interview him?" "You know about interviews?" Kang Xia was surprised. "Nope, but I know how to look at people," said Tan Xiu with a smile. Kang Xia shrugged her shoulders and said with a smile, "Since the big boss wants to do it himself, then I'm happy to do it. I hope the boss can recruit a good talent." Time fleeted by. In the blink of an eye, 20 minutes had passed. When the down-and-out middle-aged man sat on the chair for interviewing members of the magnificent Tang Corporation, he saw that the interviewers in front of him were replaced by Tan Xiu and Kang Xia. A trace of surprise appeared in his eyes as he nodded to Kang Xia and said, "Hello, Chief Kang. You know me?" Kang Xia was surprised. The middle-aged man nodded and said, "I heard that there's a business genius on Wall Street, so I paid attention to it. So I know a bit about you." Kang Xia took the portfolio handed by the middle-aged man and handed it to Tan Xiu. She then said with a smile, "The country is really full of talented people. All right, let's cut the crap. The one interviewing you is our boss. I'll just be a bystander." Tan Xiu looked at the middle-aged man's information. It was very simple. His name was Wei Zhongfeng, 42 years old. He was engaged in sales and sales. He had married and settled down in the provincial capital, Blue City. Tan Xiu put down the documents and looked at Wei Zhongfeng, saying, "3 questions. If your answers satisfy me, I'll hire you. Please ask." While Tan Xiu was scrutinizing him, Wei Zhongfeng was also scrutinizing Tan Xiu. The main reason he came to Star City this time was to apply for a position in the magnificent Tang Corporation. He was very interested in Kang Xia, who was famous in the business world. He was also very interested in the boss she had just joined. The first question. Tan Xiu said, "Loyalty and filial piety have always been difficult since ancient times. If you have to choose one, which one will you choose?" Wei Zhongfeng stared blankly. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu would ask such a question. After pondering for a moment, he slowly said, "I'm just a nobody. I can't reach the realm of a saint. If my family's life is used to threaten me, I'll choose to betray my loyalty and protect my family." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "The second question. Which one do you think is more important, your mother or your child?" Wei Zhongfeng looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and resolutely said, "Both are important. For example, if my mother and my child fall into the water at the same time, I can tell you clearly that I'll save the one who is closer to me. If possible, I'll exchange my life for the others." Tan Xiu nodded again and said, "The third question. You look very down and out, so why did you choose the magnificent Tang Corporation?" Wei Zhongfeng's heart skipped a beat. Tan Xiu's third question seemed to be only one, but there was actually another hidden question. That was, why did he look so down and out? He pondered and said, "I'll answer this question from 2 aspects. First, I've just been released from prison for more than a year. My family has undergone a drastic change, and I've been dispirited for more than a year. I've just recovered recently, but I've been rejected by many large enterprises. There's a big difference between the domestic situation and foreign situations. Secondly, I'm interested in the famous Kang Xia, but I'm more interested in the boss who's willing to work for such a talented figure. I need to find a job with a decent income, and I also want to continue working hard for my career." Tan Xiu applauded and said, "I'm satisfied with your answers to these 3 questions. I welcome you to join the magnificent Tang Corporation. You'll be a member of the company in the future. However, I need to talk to you about the first question. If you encounter a situation where you can't be loyal and filial at the same time, you can tell me. I can help you achieve both loyalty and filial piety." Wei Zhongfeng raised his brows and looked at Tan Xiu with an astonished expression. Tan Xiu didn't explain and continued, "I'll give you 2 days to solve your personal problems. Go to Kang Xia and report to her after 2 days. As for your position, I think you should be a good salesperson. Then start from the bottom. I want to see you walk step by step to the position you want. An ordinary salesperson? Wei Zhongfeng was stunned, and so was Kong Xia at the side. They stared blankly at Tang Xiu with puzzlement in their eyes. You're not satisfied? Asked Tang Xiu. Wei Zhongfeng pondered for a moment before he shook his head and said, It's not that I'm not satisfied, just a bit surprised. Rest assured, boss. I'll report to Chief Kong on time 2 days later. Alright, said Tang Xiu. As Wei Zhongfeng left, Kong Xia looked at Tang Xiu with a puzzled expression and asked, Boss, you're satisfied with Wei Zhongfeng's answer. Since you know his ability, why do you want him to start from the bottom? Right now, we are in need of talented people. Let him be the sales manager. I think he can easily do it. Things that are obtained too easily are often not cherished, Tang Xiu said lightly. Only those who have gone through great tribulations need to deepen their unforgettable memories. Kong Xia looked at Tang Xiu with an astonished expression. She had always felt that Tang Xiu was not like a 20-year-old young man, but more like a mature and steady middle-aged man. But at this moment, she felt that Tang Xiu was more like a cunning old fox. Tang Xiu got up, looked at Kong Xia and said, All right, I still have other things to do, so I'll take my leave first. You handle this matter as you see fit. Kong Xia secretly rolled her eyes. She really didn't know whether she should be happy or worried about having such a boss who always said, do as you see fit, all day long. In the past, what she was most afraid of was the big boss restricting her authority. But now, she felt that she had too much freedom. Take care, boss. The way Andy looked at Tang Xiu was as though she was looking at a god. As the saying goes, seeing is believing. She knew a lot about Eastern culture, and she really felt that this saying was right. Her boss was so young, yet he was already so powerful. How powerful would he be in the future? Would he be able to defy the heavens? Kong Xia's eyes retracted from Tang Xiu's receding back. When she saw Andy's expression, she patted her shoulder in a good mood and smilingly scolded, Stinky girl, quickly wipe off your saliva. Chapter 134. At Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Tang Xiu appeared outside the VIP ward with a thermos flask in his hand. After leaving the talent market, he personally went to the market to buy fresh vegetables and meat. After taking it back, he asked Mu Qingping to boil a hen soup with a lot of warm and nourishing medicinal herbs. In the ward side hall, Banzhou and Dingzi were looking at the impurities in a bored manner. Although they were injured, it was not worth mentioning for them, who used to be injured as a family meal. On the sickbed, Su Lingyun looked at the account book with a worried expression. The restaurant was smashed and had been closed for 2 days. If she wanted to reopen, she would need to renovate it. Moreover, she had spent tens of thousands of yuan on the medical expenses. She was worried that the money for the renovation would not be enough. A delicate and pretty girl was sitting on the bedside. She was wearing a nurse's uniform and was gently peeling an apple. Boss, you're here. Upon seeing Tang Xiu's arrival, Banzhou and Dingzi's spirit was suddenly shaken. Tang Xiu nodded and looked at the nurse. A smile was revealed on his face as he directly sat on the bedside and asked with a smile, Mom, why are you frowning? I've asked someone to boil a hen soup for you. I've also added a lot of warm and nourishing medicinal herbs. It will be very helpful for your recovery. Su Lingyun was surprised and said, Who did you ask to boil the soup for me? Our restaurant is in a mess, and the chefs in the restaurant have been given a holiday. Tang Xiu said, Don't ask so much. I'll tell you after the college entrance test. But Su Lingyun was most concerned about Tang Xiu's college entrance test. She said, Xiu, you should be in school now. How come you're in the hospital? Tang Xiu said with a smile, It's a self-study class in the evening, so it doesn't matter if I go or not. Mom, you haven't told me why you frowned just now? Did you encounter any problem that you can't solve? Su Lingyun hesitated for a moment before she bitterly smiled and said, Our family's business just got better, and we're earning a lot more money than before. But who would have thought that it would be smashed by a customer? I'm thinking about whether the remaining 100,000 yuan in my hands is enough to renovate it. Tang Xiu laughed involuntarily and said, So it's this matter. Don't worry. The renovation work could be left to Ban's Ho and the others. They had a lot of connections in the past, and the renovation materials they bought were all cheap. In addition, didn't the president of this Chinese medical hospital want to invite me to come here to see patients? So, to prevent me from going back on my word, he gave me 100,000 yuan in advance, saying that it was my salary for half a year. I will give the money to Ban's Ho later. You don't have to worry about the renovation. When you're discharged, the restaurant can reopen. Su Lingyun said, "Son, the doctor said that I need 2 to 3 months to fully recover from my injury. If our restaurant is closed for 2 or 3 months, I'm afraid. Well, I believe in Ban's Ho, Dingzi, and these kids. When their injuries get better, I'll let them busy themselves with the renovation. I'll also leave the business of the restaurant to them." Tan Xiu raised his brows. He turned his head and looked at Ban's Ho and Dingzi with a satisfied expression. He then said with a smile, "Since my mom is willing to leave this matter to you, then I'll leave the renovation and business to you. Make sure that the renovation is better and the grade is a bit higher." All right. Ban's Ho and Dingzi were immediately overjoyed. Su Lingyun's trust in the two of them made them feel especially touched. They secretly decided that they must expand the scale of the restaurant, decorate it in a more imposing manner, and manage it better than before. Knock, knock. The door was knocked as the inpatient department's director came in with several doctors in white gowns to check the ward. When he saw Tan Xiu, his eyes suddenly lit up as he greeted him with a smile. "Mr. Tang, I didn't expect you to be here. I've already ordered the cafeteria to specially prepare the dishes." "Thank you," Tan Xiu said with a smile. The inpatient department's director smiled more brilliantly as he waved his hand and said, "You're welcome, Mr. Tang. It's the president's order. How is it? Is your mom all right?" "I'm fine. Thank you, Director Wang," Su Lingyun quickly said. "It's good that you're fine." The inpatient department director said with a smile, "I'll go to the other wards to have a look." As the inpatient department director left, Su Lingyun looked at Tan Xiu and said with a complicated expression, "Xiu, there's a question I haven't asked. Do you know someone?" "Yeah," Tan Xiu said. "What's wrong?" Su Lingyun suddenly tensed up and asked again, "What's his surname? Is his surname also Tang?" "What do you mean?" Tan Xiu was somewhat baffled by his mother's question, but he still honestly said, "Mom, his surname is not Tang, but Long. He's the one who arranged for you to move to the VIP ward." Su Lingyun's tense expression slowly receded as she nodded and said, "It's good that his surname is not Tang. By the way, you said you've read medical books before, right? You even cured a patient that even the president couldn't cure? Is it true? Xiu, you must be an honest child. If you don't have the ability, quickly return the 100,000 yuan to him and don't come to the hospital to see patients." "Don't worry, Mom," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Have you ever seen me overestimate myself since I was a child?" Su Lingyun wanted to say something but hesitated. "Mom, I did read a lot of medical books in my spare time and I also know a lot of medicinal herbs," Tan Xiu comforted her. "I'll let you see the little girl I cured after the college entrance test." "All right, let's not talk about this topic and quickly drink the hen soup." Half an hour later, Tan Xiu left the hospital. When he returned to Southgate Town, he happened to bump into Yuan Chuling, Qing Yannan, and 2 other girls at the gate post. Since Tan Xiu wasn't familiar with the 2 girls, he didn't even know their names. "Eldest brother, you finally appeared. Is this where you live? Isn't it too high-end? We're not the residents here, and the guards didn't even let us enter the gate. I was just about to call you." Yuan Chuling was pleasantly surprised upon seeing Tan Xiu. "The security here is good," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Since you've come with me. As for Teacher Han, I've already given her a heads up. From now on, you can come over every night." Cheng Yannan looked at Tan Xiu and curiously said, "Tan Xiu, you seem to have changed." "Changed? What do you mean?" Tan Xiu was confused. "What do you mean?" Cheng Yannan said, "I don't remember your skin being this white before. Also, I feel that your height seems to have increased a lot. Don't tell me that you've eaten something very nutritious for more than a week?" Tan Xiu suddenly understood. His cultivation had broken through, and his height had indeed increased. As for his skin, a lot of impurities had been expelled from his body, so his skin was naturally whiter than before. However, in order to divert Qing Yannan's attention, he said with a smile, "I didn't expect that you would listen to my observations so carefully. Are you fascinated by me?" "Bah." Qing Yannan's charming face blushed as she hurriedly turned her face to the side. Yuan Chuling was surprised and said with a smile, "Eldest brother, it's said that a day apart is like 3 years. We haven't seen each other for a week or two, yet your EQ has increased? You even dare to tease the great Bell Qing? Tease your sister?" Tan Xiao snappily glared at him and strode toward the villa complex. Swiping my card. After entering the villa's courtyard, Yuan Chuling seemed to have seen a new world as he constantly sized up the scene in the courtyard. As he followed behind Tan Xiao and entered the villa's hall, he suddenly exclaimed, "Heavens! Eldest brother, did you really rob a bank? You actually live in such a stylish place? I've long heard that the Southgate town's villas are incomparably expensive, but I didn't expect it to be this luxurious. This villa is absolutely impossible to buy without a 9-digit number, right?" Tan Xiao said indifferently, "It's a gift from someone. I didn't spend any money on it." "Holy shit!" Yuan Chuling let out a strange cry as he stared at him with his big bell-like eyes and asked, "Someone gave it to you? Don't tell me that you're a sugar daddy of a rich woman?" Qing Yannan and the other 2 girls couldn't help but laugh. Although they were shocked that Tan Xiao could live in such a luxurious villa, but Yuan Chuling was really too funny. However, they could feel that the relationship between Yuan Chuling and Tan Xiao was really good. Tan Xiao ignored Yuan Chuling as he looked at Mu Qingping, who came out and said, "They are my classmates. They will come here every night to study until the college entrance test. In 2 hours, you can make us some supper." "All right." Mu Qingping nodded with a smile. Yuan Chuling was surprised and said, "Eldest brother, you even have a housekeeper in this villa? Isn't it too extravagant?" Tan Xiao snappily said, "She's my housekeeper. You can call her Big Sister Mu. Well, I've asked Big Sister Mu to clean up the conference room. Later, you'll have tutoring lessons there." In the conference room on the 1st floor. In the big room of 40 to 50 square meters, dozens of chairs were neatly arranged in front of the oval conference table. Tea was also placed in front of each seat. The degree of luxury here made even a rich young master like Yuan Chuling secretly flabbergasted. Not to mention the 2 girls. On the contrary, Qing Yannan seemed to be accustomed to it and didn't seem to be surprised. "You study first, I'll have a few words with Big Sister Mu." Tan Xiao greeted them and then took Mu Qingping to the corridor outside. He said, "I've talked to Yinin. She said that she has missed more than 2 years of lessons and doesn't want to go to school for the time being. I've hired private tutors from a good training class outside. They will come to my home every morning, afternoon, and evening to give lessons to Yinin. If Yinin can make up for the missed lessons in 3 or 4 months, I'm ready to send her to school on September 1st. Then, she can go to school to experience the campus life." Mu Qingping gratefully looked at Tan Xiao and silently nodded. She could feel Tan Xiao's care and love for her daughter, so she said, "Thank you, Mr. Tang." Tan Xiao waved and said, "I'll call you Big Sister Mu later." "You call me Tan Xiao." "That's right. Text me your bank account number, I'll transfer some money to your account." Mu Qingping quickly said, "Mr. Tang?" "Tan Xiao, I still have money." "It's too sad." Jingya's tenosynovitis flared up again because of the fierce outburst in the past few days. Almost every time she typed on the keyboard, Jingya's fingers would feel a sharp pain as if they were pricked by needles. This kind of pain was simply too uncomfortable. But in order to ensure the updates, Jingya had to endure the pain and finish typing today's 4 chapters. Afterward, her fingers would hurt 30 to 40,000 times. The degree of pain was comparable to a woman giving birth to a child. I beg the brothers and sisters to comfort me, so that Jingya will have the motivation to continue giving birth tomorrow. Chapter 135. The recommendation votes in the immortal world are really miserable. I ask the friends who like this book to cast your precious recommendation votes. Thank you very much. Tan Xiu said, that's your money, keep it. Since you want to be my housekeeper, I will naturally give you a sum of money for your daily life. In addition, your salary, for the time being, 20,000 yuan a month. When I have more money later, I will raise it for you. Mu Qingping hesitated for a moment and silently nodded. Tan Xiu looked at Mu Qingping's appearance and suddenly remembered the days in the immortal world. He felt that he didn't know how to buy people's hearts before, so he ended up being deserted. Now that he returned to modern times, he decided to change himself, so he said again, Big Sister Mu, since you want to be my housekeeper, then you are my family. What's more, Enin is my apprentice, so in the future, where is my home, is your home. Between us, I hope there won't be too much courtesy. Later, if you don't have money, just tell me. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. As long as I can do it, I will definitely do it. Mu Qingping was stunned, and a layer of mist slowly appeared in her eyes. Since her husband died in a car accident and her daughter got a strange disease, she had never felt the warmth of a home since she sold her house. Listening to Tan Xiu's words, at this moment, a feeling of happiness hit her heart. She had a home. Moreover, she also had a relative. Mu Qingping whispered in her heart. In a flash, she felt closer to Tan Xiu. Thank you. Mu Qingping's lips squirmed a few times, but her voice was like a mosquito flapping its wings. Tan Xiu slightly smiled and said, well, I'll give them a supplementary lesson, you go and rest first. Mu Qingping nodded and turned to leave. A moment later, Tan Xiu observed with his divine sense and found that after Mu Qingping returned to her room, she directly sat on the bed, hugged her knees and cried. Poor woman! Tan Xiu secretly sighed in his heart. Suddenly, he thought of his mother, and his heart suddenly turned sour. Mu Qingping was like this now, but wasn't his mother also like this? Mu Qingping met him and regarded him as her family, but what about his mother? His mother endured hardships to raise him. How much suffering did she suffer? How much suffering did they suffer? How many times had she cried behind his back? At this moment, Tan Xiu secretly swore that he would never let his mother suffer the slightest grievance in the future. After returning to the conference room, Tan Xiu saw the four of them whispering to each other, so he cleared his throat and said, starting from tomorrow, all of you are to find the books for year 1
we are
and
facing
year 2
the college
and bring
entrance
examination.
My
After
teaching
all,
method is
I will
very
extract
simple.
all the important
As long as you
content
can
from
grasp
year
the
1,
technique,
year 2,
it will be very
and year
easy
3
for you
to
to
strive
learn
to
all
improve
the
your
content
college
in the
entrance
textbook.
examination results significantly. Qing Yannan didn't have much hope for Tan Xiu. When Tan Xiu had wanted to tutor Yuan Chuling in private, she had been hot-headed and had proposed to study together with him. But now, looking at Tan Xiu's confident look, she didn't want to discourage Tan Xiu. She asked, Tan Xiu, what are we going to learn today? Tan Xiu said, since you didn't bring the textbooks for year 1 and year 2 today, let's talk about the content for year 3. You still need to accumulate knowledge in Chinese, but I can tell you the key topics of the college entrance examination. If my guess is correct, it should be helpful to you. Foreign language, mathematics, physics, and chemistry. You can choose the parts that you don't understand or the parts that you always make mistakes in the exams. I'll give you some pointers. Alright. The four of them opened their textbooks and asked about the parts that they usually didn't understand. Tan Xiu's mind was clear, and his words were well organized. Moreover, according to the method of dissecting silk from cocoons, he explained the problems that they didn't understand layer by layer, from simple to profound. 2 hours passed by, but they didn't realize it at all. Every time Tan Xiu explained a problem to them, they were pleasantly surprised to find that the parts that they didn't understand before were suddenly enlightened. In fact, there were even many places where everything was connected. It's amazing! In the past, the teacher repeatedly explained it many times, but I didn't understand this mathematics problem. After Tan Xiu's explanation, I unexpectedly understood it all at once. It's like seeing the clear sky after the clouds have been pushed away. Tan Xiu, you're really amazing. I think your level is even better than our mathematics teacher. The girl called Xia Wanfan sincerely praised. The other girl called Li Xiaoqian also praised. The chemistry problem that Tan Xiu explained to me just now was really skillful. If I analyze it according to the formula that he explained, I can understand a lot of related content. If I encounter similar problems again in the future, I can definitely solve it easily. Worthy of being my boss. Worthy of being my idol. Yuan Chuling gave a thumbs up and said with a smiling face. As for Qing Yannan, at this moment, the contempt in her heart had already vanished. Every topic and subject that Tan Xiu explained today had given her a great shock. She knew some of those problems, but her method of solving them simply couldn't be compared with Tan Xiu's. Simple, clear and organized. Layers upon layers of logical reasoning would soon be able to get the correct answer. Cheng Yannan looked at Tan Xiu and said with a serious expression, I originally thought that it would be very dangerous for me to enter a second-tier university based on my results. But now, I'm confident that I can even enter a top-tier university after your guidance. Thank you, Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, It's just a trivial matter. After all of you get excellent results and enter a top-tier university, remember to treat me to a meal when you have time later. Definitely. Cheng Yannan and the two girls nodded repeatedly. Yuan Chuling touched his chin and said with a smile, Boss, even if I can't enter a top-tier university, I'll treat you to a big meal. No, I'll treat you to as many meals as you want. My dad and mom said that I must invite you to our house as a guest someday. Let's talk about it later, Tan Xiu said calmly. He didn't want to see Yuan Chuling's mother now. Otherwise, the matter of him saving and killing people would be completely exposed. Although he was now clear that Yuan Chuling's mother might have already guessed that it was him, but after all, she hadn't seen him. Even if it was just a guess, she didn't dare to be 100% sure. The supper is ready. Do you want to eat now? Mu Qingping came to the conference room wearing an apron and said with a smiling face. At this moment, she seemed to be a few years younger, and her face was glowing. Tan Xiu was very clear that Mu Qingping had returned to her room and cried bitterly. It could be said that she had vented out all the depression and grievances that had been suppressed in her heart for more than 2 years. She even decided to start a new life. Let's eat now. Tan Xiu replied and brought the four to the dining room. Is this really supper? Isn't it too sumptuous? Xia Wanfen exclaimed with wide eyes as she looked at the exquisite dishes on the table. The fragrance assailed her nostrils. Yuan Chuling sat on the chair and exclaimed, It's really extravagant. Let's not talk about the color, smell, and taste of the dishes. Just the soup alone, it actually uses Chinese herbs. I'm really convinced. Eldest brother, your life now is just like that of an emperor. Otherwise, I'll move in with you later. You're not welcome. I'm afraid that you'll eat until you're poor. Tan Xiu smiled and sat down. Yuan Chuling rolled his eyes, snorted twice, and then began to eat. The four people's appetite was greatly stimulated by the supper. Because the meal was very sumptuous, even though each of them had eaten a lot, there was still more than half left. Later, after they rested for a while, Tan Xiu began to give them pointers again. Until the early hours of the morning, the four people reluctantly gave up the idea of continuing to learn. Tan Xiu looked at the tired four people and lightly asked, I have something to do tomorrow, so are you going back to school? You can leave after eating. If you're staying here, isn't too good. Go to the guest room to rest. Cheng Yannan usually lived at school. This was the first time she lived in her classmate's house, so she felt that it was somewhat inappropriate. The other two girls also showed hesitant expressions. Tan Xiu said, If you don't want to live here, then go back. There should be someone in the property management office now. I'll ask who has a car to drive you back to school. Yuan Chuling said aloud, It's already so late. How many hours can we sleep if we go back to school? I'm not leaving tonight. I'll stay here. Eldest brother, prepare a room for me. I'll sleep here every night after I finish my study. Qing Yannan looked at the two girls, and finally nodded and said, It's already so late. Don't bother the property management office. I'll also stay here. We'll also stay here. The other two girls also nodded and said after seeing Qing Yannan agree, Do as you wish. I have a lot of guest rooms here, enough for you to stay. Big sis Mu should still be awake, so I'll let her arrange it for you. Half an hour later. In a guest room, Li Xiaoqian and Xia Wanfen decided to stay in the same room. So, after taking a bath, They wore the pajamas prepared in the guest room and sat side by side at the head of the bed, chatting. Xiaoqian, we misunderstood Tan Xiu before, but he unexpectedly didn't care about our past enmity. Not only did he help us with our tuition, but he also asked someone to prepare a midnight snack for us. He even let us stay in his house. He's really a good person. Yeah. I didn't expect that Tan Xiu's character would be so good. I was worried that Tan Xiu would fuss about the matter at school, but now it seems that it was unnecessary. He's very easygoing. That bastard Su Xiangfei always talks bad things about Tan Xiu behind his back. When we go back to school tomorrow, we must tell everyone that those words are Su Xiangfei's lies. Tan Xiu is not that kind of person. Yeah, I used to think that Su Xiangfei is very handsome, and his academic performance is also good. I never thought that his character would be so bad. We must let the whole class know his true colors. That's right. Today's harvest is so big. If we really get good results in the college entrance exam, we must show our gratitude by inviting him to dinner and singing with him. No problem. Tan Xiu could get the shares of this project, but not the other projects. We can do a lot of projects on this piece of land. If that kid wants to make money, he will definitely be tied to our chariot. Ouyang Lulu's eyes lit up as she gave Long Zhengyu a thumbs up and praised, I've long heard that young Master Long is resourceful and a rare elite in the business world. Today, I've finally learned something new. My family really hopes that I can cooperate more with Tan Xiu. Ouyang Lulu's words were not false. On the night when Tan Xiu left, she returned to the Ouyang family's ancestral residence. After seeing her father and grandfather, she found that her mother, who often disappeared, was also at home. Her mother and brother even misunderstood that she had a special relationship with Tan Xiu. Even after she explained it to them, they still hoped that she would have more contact with Tan Xiu. Ouyang Lulu's heart was as clear as a mirror. The reason why her family wanted her to have more contact with Tan Xiu was that, on the one hand, they hoped that she and Tan Xiu could have a good relationship and make Tan Xiu the future son-in-law of the Ouyang family. On the other hand, it was inseparable from Tan Xiu's identity as a cultivator. Cultivators were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns in this world. Any family that could have a relationship with a cultivator would definitely have great benefits. Their Ouyang family had developed into one of the top families in Jingmen Island, but they had also encountered a bottleneck. From Tan Xiu's identity, they seemed to see a bigger space for development. Long Zhengyu let out a faint smile and said, in fact, as long as we can tie Tan Xiu to our chariot, there will definitely be more surprises. For example, a business cooperation. A certain tycoon has been considering whether to do real estate or not. Chu Yi was confused and asked, which tycoon? Long Zhengyu said with a smile, Qin Jizhong, the Endless Virtue Pharmaceuticals boss. Of course, he's also Tan Xiu's disciple. What? Chu Yi and Bai Tao's complexion changed. They had previously sent people to investigate Tan Xiu and found out that Tan Xiu and Chen Jizhong had an unusual relationship. Chen Jizhong even publicly said that he wanted to worship Tan Xiu as his master. But this matter was actually true? Ouyang Lulu squinted her eyes as she nodded and said, extraordinary people do extraordinary things. Tan Xiu is unfathomable in my heart. He will definitely bring us more surprises in the future. Half an hour later, a taxi came roaring. When Tan Xiu got off the taxi, he saw Long Zhengyu and the others not far away from him. What he didn't expect was that he had seen the three people beside Long Zhengyu before. It's you? Tan Xiu's eyes swept over Ouyang Lulu and finally stopped at Chu Yi and Bai Tao. Chu Yi said with a smile, hello, Tan Xiu. We had some small issues before in Jingmen Island. I hope you don't take it to heart. However, our funds are limited, and we can only build a building at first. If it's possible later, we can talk about cooperation and jointly develop this place. Tan Xiu nodded and said, if there's a follow-up, I'll participate. That's right, I need money now. Did Tai Long give you the money? Long Zhengyu said, I've sent people to calculate all of Tai Long's assets. It's a total of 135 million yuan. My Long family will take over his fixed assets. I'll ask the company's finance department to transfer the money to your account later. All right. Tan Xiu nodded. Although he had yet to reach the peak of the skin-strengthening stage, he must prepare for the medicinal herbs, precious ores, and other things that he would need in the future. With money in hand, he wouldn't miss it if he came across it later. Thinking about the Millennium Wild Ginseng, Tan Xiao secretly felt pity. Suddenly, Tan Xiao's expression moved. He looked at the 4 rich people in front of him and said, "Everyone, you should have a very powerful background and a lot of connections. I'll make a list of medicinal herbs and precious ores later. If you want, help me find the medicinal herbs I want. The price is easy to discuss." Long Zhengyu was confused. "Brother Tang, why do you want to buy medicinal herbs and precious ores?" Ouyang Lulu quickly said, "I know that Tan Xiao is a very powerful Chinese medicine practitioner. He should be useful in the medical field, right? But precious ores? I don't know what he wants to do with them." "I have my own use for them," Tan Xiao said. Chu Yi said, "Tan Xiao, I'll treat this matter as my own. I'll immediately inform you once I have the news." Bai Tao said. A trace of a smile was revealed on Tan Xiao's face as he said, "Thank you, everyone." While they were talking, Tan Xiao's mobile phone rang. When he took it out and looked at the number, his complexion suddenly changed. After the call was connected, he said, "Gu Xiaoxue, you've arrived." Tan Xiao revealed a faint smile, and a treacherous light flashed in his eyes. He said with a faint smile, "Since you want to go with me, then let's go. I don't have a car. You can take me there." "All right." Ouyang Lulu grabbed the car key and strode toward a sports Land Rover Range Rover in the distance. She was always full of wildness and haughtiness when facing others. That white Land Rover SUV was very compatible with her character. Buzz. The roar of the engine echoed in the wilderness. The white Land Rover SUV was like a white arrow that dashed toward the end of the straight road in the distance. On the roadside, Long Zhengyu, Chu Yi, and Bai Tao looked at each other in dismay with a strange expression on their faces. Cough, cough. Bai Tao gave a thumbs up. A smile outlined on the corner of his mouth as he praised, "Zhengyu, Tan Xiao will no longer be your idol in the future. He's also my idol, Bai Tao. It's really fucking awesome." Even Ouyang Lulu, this wild horse, was subdued by him. Even Gu Xiaoxue, that ice beauty, traveled thousands of miles to Star City to have a rendezvous with him. This brother is really a killing machine in the world, the terminator of single beauties. Chu Yi said with a strange smile, "I thought I was wrong. Never thought that you, Bai Tao, also sensed it. Our classmate Lulu's tone just now was really sour and sour." Bai Tao chuckled and said, "I dare to swear that Ouyang Lulu has fallen into Idol Tang's hands for the rest of her life. She's a woman with eyes on the top of her head. If she doesn't fall in love, then it's fine. But once she does, she'll hang herself to death on a tree." Listening to their conversation, a forced smile appeared on Long Zhengyu's face as he said, "It's not a good thing to have too many love affairs. Although Tan Xiao has a good IQ, but I can feel that his EQ is not that high. It's not necessarily a good thing for him to be pestered by so many women in the future." Chu Yi and Bai Tao looked at each other. Then they turned their heads and rolled their eyes at Long Zhengyu. Bai Tao scolded with a smile, "Young Master Long, you can't eat the grapes yet you say the grapes are sour. Whether it's Ouyang Lulu or Gu Xiaoxue, both of them are smart girls. It's because Tan Xiao's EQ is not high that he's a big killer weapon that attracts them. If you don't believe me, just wait and see. Sooner or later, Tan Xiao will be able to lie drunk on a beauty's lap, wake up with a beauty's heart, and enjoy the happiness of having 2 women. Get lost. Don't talk nonsense with me." Long Zhengyu was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry. Inside the Land Rover SUV speeding on the highway, Ouyang Lulu, who was holding the steering wheel, looked a bit absent-minded. She was still thinking about the relationship between Tan Xiao and Gu Xiaoxue. She knew Gu Xiaoxue's character. If there was no special relationship between the two, it was absolutely impossible for her to come all the way to Star City to find Tan Xiao. So much so that she almost never left the Everlasting Feast Hall's manor. Tan Xiao went to the Everlasting Feast Hall and broke through the 1,000 Revolution Array, showing his extraordinary talent. Could it be that they hooked up at that time? Ouyang Lulu thought gloomily. Concentrate on driving. Tan Xiao retracted his gaze from the window and immediately reminded her upon seeing Ouyang Lulu's absent-minded appearance. Ouyang Lulu glanced at Tan Xiao from the side. While concentrating on driving, she pretended to be careless and asked, Tan Xiao, we can be said to have gone through thick and thin together. We're friends who have lived together, so we should be able to talk about anything, right? Tan Xiao turned his face to the window and was too lazy to pay attention to Ouyang Lulu. He really didn't know when he had gone through thick and thin together with her. And that cohabitation, wrong. That was not cohabitation at all. It was just living under the same roof, with 2 rooms in the same house, and he even gave her a massage to treat her injuries for free. Ouyang Lulu seemed to have long been accustomed to Tan Xiao's arrogant appearance, so she didn't get angry. Instead, she continued to ask with a faint smile, since we're good friends who can talk about anything, you should talk to me about your relationship with Gu Xiaoxue, right? Don't tell me you're in love? Talk your grandmother. Tan Xiao nearly blurted out this sentence. He didn't know what kind of relationship he had with Gu Xiaoxue. Maybe they were even mortal enemies. Ouyang Lulu raised her brows and said, silence means acquiescence. Never thought that you also have a gossipy heart. Drive your car properly. If you're so long-winded, I'll throw you out. Tan Xiao snappily said. You? Ouyang Lulu was furious. But looking at Tan Xiao's impatient expression, she finally suppressed the depression inside her heart. She fiercely glared at the front and fiercely stepped on the accelerator. You're speeding, you'll be fined and have points deducted. Although Tan Xiao had yet to get his driver's license, he still had this common sense. Ouyang Lulu indignantly said, why do you care? Tan Xiao forced a smile and sighed inwardly. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. He really couldn't understand what this woman was thinking. Starlight Building. Gu Xiaoxue was wearing a fluttering white skirt and carrying a white handbag. She was like a fairy that appeared in the mortal world, completely incompatible with the noisy scene around. Her stunning appearance was like a magnet that attracted the eyes of all the men in the surroundings, as well as a large number of women. However, the chilling aura exuded from her body made countless men who wanted to come over and strike up a conversation flinch. Finally, a handsome man who thought he had a graceful demeanor and tried his best to exude the special charm of a man came forward and said with a smile, Miss, is there anything I can help you with? Go away. Gu Xiaoxue's voice was very pleasant to the ears, but the 2 words she spat out made the handsome man's complexion stagnate. He immediately let out a forced smile and hid to the side. Ha! A guy who overestimates himself. A toad wanting to eat a swan's meat, but the result is a disgrace, isn't it? She's really a goddess. She's too strong. Those female stars on TV will die as far as they can in the future. No one can be compared with this goddess. If I can marry such an icy beauty, I'm willing to do it even if I have to shorten my life by 20 years. Let alone 20 years, I'm willing to do it for 30 years. She's really beautiful. How come my heart is beating so fast? Gu Xiaoxue wanted to turn around and walk away. But in order to wait for Tan Xiao, she had no choice but to endure and continue waiting. She rarely had contact with the outside world and was not used to appearing in public. She was even more unaccustomed to being pointed at by countless people. Creak! An emergency braking sound was heard nearby, attracting many people's attention. On the front passenger seat, Tan Xiao looked at Ouyang Lulu and lightly said, Thank you for sending me here. I have something important to discuss with Gu Xiaoxue. You can go now. What? Upon hearing Tan Xiao's words, Ouyang Lulu's eyes nearly popped out. She raised her arm in disbelief as she pointed at her nose and asked, You mean, you want me to come here to be your coachman? Is there a problem? Tan Xiao asked. There's your sister. Ouyang Lulu couldn't bear it anymore and burst out a foul word. Tan Xiao didn't care about it and said, I'm an only child and have no sister. Take care, I won't send you off. Having said that, he opened the door and walked toward Gu Xiaoxue after getting off the car. Ouyang Lulu fiercely glared at Tan Xiao's back. She immediately unfastened her seat belt and chased after him in big strides. She didn't believe that even if Tan Xiao didn't welcome her, her bosom friend, Gu Xiaoxue, wouldn't welcome her. Xiao Xue, I'm so happy to see you. Ouyang Lulu dashed to the front of Gu Xiaoxue and affectionately pulled her small hand. Chapter 138. Gu Xiaoxue frowned. Although she was happy to see Ouyang Lulu, she still had a very important matter to discuss with Tan Xiu today. Furthermore, she found it strange as to why Ouyang Lulu was with Tan Xiu. Immediately, she cast a questioning look at Tan Xiu. She's my temporary coachman. I can't drive her away, so you do it. Tan Xiu came before Gu Xiaoxue and said lightly. Gu Xiaoxue suddenly understood and looked at Ouyang Lulu with a bit of apology. Lulu, I'm also very happy to see you in Star City. However, I have a very important matter to discuss with Tan Xiu. Can you leave? If possible, I'll contact you again when I return to Jingmen Island. What? Ouyang Lulu's brain was short-circuited. She didn't expect that Gu Xiaoxue would be so obedient to Tan Xiu's order. Was this still her good sister? Could it be Gu Xiaoxue was really dead set on falling in love with Tan Xiu? Ouyang Lulu looked at Tan Xiu and then at Gu Xiaoxue. She then nodded and said, "All right, you talk. I'll take my leave first." The nearby onlookers were curious upon seeing a sports Land Rover SUV. But when they saw Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu, they were immediately dumbfounded. They directly ignored Tan Xiu and focused 99% of their eyes on Ouyang Lulu. It was because this beauty, whether it was her appearance or temperament, was almost the same as that fairy in a fluttering white dress. The good cabbages are all taken by pigs. At this time, countless people looked at Tan Xiu with eyes full of intense jealousy. However, when they saw Ouyang Lulu return to her Land Rover SUV and drive away, and then saw Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue's backs as they walked toward the building, their eyes burned with rage. Am I blind? Or are those two goddesses blind? How come they have a relationship with that brat? Damn! What's that brat's origin? He even has goddesses accompanying him one after another? My heart is broken. The man of my dreams left with another man. I want to flesh that bastard. Why does he have such good luck with women? Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue walked side by side. The two of them had a tacit understanding and did not speak. On the 44th floor of the Starlight Building, there was the most famous viewing cafe in Star City. Sitting in the window seat, one could have a panoramic view of most of Star City. What would you like to order? The beautiful waitress walked over slowly and asked with a professional smile. White water. White water. Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue said in unison. The waiter looked at the two of them in surprise. He did not understand why the two customers who came to the cafe would order plain water. However, the guest was God. She had to satisfy any request of God, so she said with a smile, "Please wait a moment." Gu Xiaoxue's beautiful eyes looked at Tan Xiu as she asked with a sinking tone, "I remember that you said on the phone that the Water Block Dragon Array and the 1000 Revolution Array were created by you. Is that true or false?" Tan Xiu spread his spiritual sense around and found that there were no other cultivators within hundreds of meters. Only then did he feel a bit relieved and lightly said, "Yes, it's me." Gu Xiaoxue's body instantly tensed up and said, "As far as I know, the one who created the Water Block Dragon Array and the 1000 Revolution Array is a supreme from the immortal world. He has the same name as you, Tan Xiu. Can you explain to me what's the relationship between the two of you?" Tan Xiu sighed. "It seems that you really know a lot. I originally didn't believe that someone from the immortal world came to Earth, but I didn't expect the truth to be beyond my expectation. Before I answer your question, you must tell me, who is your master? Why does your everlasting feast hall have the Water Block Dragon Array and the 1000 Revolution Array?" "Guyan, I've told you before," Gu Xiaoxue said. Tan Xiu shook his head and seriously said, "What I want to know is not just a name. I want to know her origin." Gu Xiaoxue looked deeply at Tan Xiu. After being silent for a long time, she slowly said, "Since you know about the immortal world, then I'll tell you that my master came from there." Tan Xiu suddenly got up. His body slightly trembled due to the excitement inside. He pressed his hands on the table and stared at Gu Xiaoxue's eyes, saying one word at a time, "You can eat indiscriminately, but you can't speak irresponsibly. There's a space barrier between Earth and the immortal world. And the immortal world doesn't have Earth's coordinates. How could your master come to Earth? Not to be outdone, Gu Xiaoxue stared at Tan Xiu's eyes and said, My master naturally has her own way. I've answered your question, now it's your turn to answer mine. Tan Xiu fell into silence. He sat back on his seat and slowly closed his eyes. After a long time, Tan Xiu opened his eyes again. A bright light flashed in his eyes as he indifferently said, I want to ask you one last question. If your answer satisfies me, I'll tell you the answer. Ask away. Gu Xiaoxue frowned, but still replied. Have you heard of Fairy Wanhua, Great Emperor Danqing, and Zhuyao Qin Demon? Asked Tan Xiu. Fairy Wanhua? Great Emperor Danqing? Zhuyao Qin Demon? A cold, murderous intent exuded from Gu Xiaoxue's body as she said in a deep voice, I've heard my master say these names countless times in her coma. They all deserve to die. All of them. Deserve to die? Tan Xiu keenly felt the murderous intent from Gu Xiaoxue, and his heart suddenly trembled. In an instant, he was finally sure that his favorite apprentice was still alive. Not only was she still alive, but she also knew about him. More importantly, she hated those bastards who betrayed him. She had a strong killing intent toward them. Huff, the thing that Tan Xiu was most worried about didn't happen in the end. It made him feel gratified, and he missed his apprentice who he had raised and brought up. He looked at Gu Xiaoxue and seriously said, A freak combination of factors led to me arriving in the immortal world. 10,000 years in the immortal world passed in a flash. Perhaps it's not my fate to die yet. When my consciousness returned, I returned to Earth. In this life, there are people I hate and people I miss. During my time in the immortal world, I once accepted a disciple named Gu Yan. I gave her this name and I raised her myself. It's a pity. Gu Xiaoxue abruptly got up. Her body trembled violently as she looked at Tan Xiu's eyes that were full of memories. Ignoring the gazes of the other people in the cafe, she walked to the table and directly knelt down, calling out with a trembling voice, Grand Disciple Gu Xiaoxue pays respect to Grand Master. Your master, is she really my apprentice? Tan Xiu hurriedly asked. Yes. Gu Xiaoxue's answer was particularly firm. Where is she? Tan Xiu asked again. The Everlasting Feast Hall, answered Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiu's pupils shrunk and he said without hesitation, Let's go to Jingmen Island immediately and go to the Everlasting Feast Hall. Time flies like an arrow. As a master and a father, he finally got the news of his apprentice. He couldn't wait to grow a pair of wings and fly to Jingmen Island's Everlasting Feast Hall to see his apprentice. He wanted to ask why there was no news of her in the past, and why he couldn't find her for 1,000 years. Gu Xiaoxue got up from the floor, but she didn't follow Tan Xiu out. She wanted to say something but hesitated. After seeing Tan Xiu walk a dozen steps away, she forced a smile and said, Can you wait for a while, Grand Master? Tan Xiu's pace halted as he turned his head and asked in surprise, Why aren't you leaving? Gu Xiaoxue quietly came to Tan Xiu's side and forced a smile. Grand Master, there are some things I haven't told you yet. Let's return to our seats first. You can decide whether to go to Jingmen Island now after I've told you. Tan Xiu frowned and observed Gu Xiaoxue a few times before returning to his seat. He then looked at Gu Xiaoxue, who was sitting in front of him, and said, Speak. I'm listening. Gu Xiaoxue slightly nodded. She sorted out her thoughts and said, Grand Master, have you ever heard of the Space Magic Array? The Space Magic Array? Wasn't this another secret art of Shade Demon Zhu Wushou? Zhu Wushou was the most powerful supremacy stage expert in the immortal world. He had comprehended the mysteries of time and space and created the unparalleled Space Magic Array. If one were to say who was the fastest in the immortal world and had the strangest secret art, then it would undoubtedly be Shade Demon Zhu Wushou. I know. Tan Xiu nodded. Gu Xiaoxue slowly said, Thousands of years ago, my master once took a huge risk to sneak into Time Island and racked her brains to scheme against Shade Demon Zhu Wushou's direct disciple. She finally obtained the Space Magic Array from him and devoted herself to comprehending it for thousands of years. Zhu Wushou also chased her for thousands of years before she finally comprehended the mysteries of the Space Magic Array. However, The last time she used this array, she was severely injured by Zhu Wushou. His time nightmare was cast on her. What did you say? Tan Xiu's expression greatly changed and the doubts in his heart faded away. He finally understood why his disciple could come to Earth. Among all the supremacy stage experts in the immortal world, the one who had a glimmer of hope to come to Earth was undoubtedly Zhu Wushou. He had comprehended the mysteries of time and space, and if he had a trace of karma with him, he might be able to find Earth. However, he only had contact with him a few times in the immortal world and didn't have any karma with him. Furthermore, if he wanted to calculate the Earth's space coordinates, he must have the ability to learn the celestial mystery Heavenly Emperor's star-pushing divination technique. Otherwise, Zhu Wushou wouldn't be able to come to Earth. Tan Xiu was sure that his precious disciple not only learned the space magic array, but also learned the star-pushing divination technique from the celestial mystery Heavenly Emperor. Are you done? Tan Xiu looked deeply at Gu Xiaoxue and asked in a deep voice. Gu Xiaoxue nodded and said, I don't know much about my master. I've told you everything I know. Tan Xiu got up again and said, Let's go. To Jingmen Island. When the two of them arrived at the airport by car, Tan Xiu was depressed. There were only 2 flights from Star City to Jingmen Island every day, and the last flight had left 20 minutes ago. If they wanted to go to Jingmen Island today, they would need to find another way. However, finding another way would take a lot of time, which was a kind of torment for the impatient Tan Xiu. I just thought of someone. Gu Xiaoxue's white skirt fluttered as she stood beside Tan Xiu and said thoughtfully. What do you mean? Asked Tan Xiu. Chapter 139. Today's total of 270 monthly votes is less than 300. According to the calculation, Quiet Night needs to update 3 chapters. Counting the last 2 chapters, Quiet Night will release 5 chapters today. This is the first chapter update. I sincerely ask for monthly votes and recommendation votes to support me. A trace of a smile was revealed on the corner of Gu Xiaoxue's mouth. In an instant, her image of an icy beauty collapsed and was replaced by a kind of gentle charm that could cause the downfall of a state. Ouyang Lulu is a rich woman. She's also a bit of a neat freak. What she hates the most is to sit in other people's cars. If my guess is correct, she came to Jingmen Island this time. If she didn't drive, then she must have taken her private plane. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment and said, She should have driven here, right? She's my driver today, so I'm driving her car. It shouldn't be, said Gu Xiaoxue. Her car has a license plate, not a temporary one. The car she drove today has a temporary license plate, said Gu Xiaoxue. You noticed that? Tan Xiu was surprised. My observation has always been very good, said Gu Xiaoxue with a shallow smile. Ever since she had confirmed Tan Xiu's identity, she had been a bit closer to Tan Xiu. She was adopted and raised by Gu Yan, since she was a child. The concept of respecting one's master was deeply ingrained in her heart. She was perfectly aware that her master was adopted by Tan Xiu. Without Tan Xiu, there would be no master, and without her master, there would be no her today. Tan Xiu grabbed his mobile and dialed Ouyang Lulu's number. What? Ouyang Lulu's unhappy voice came out of the phone. Tan Xiu was a bit embarrassed. He felt that he was a bit like a person who needed help in front of others but didn't need help in the future. Therefore, his attitude was much better than before as he spoke with an extraordinarily gentle tone. Lulu, I want to ask you something. How's your business in Star City? Lulu? On the other end of the phone, it was the first time Ouyang Lulu heard Tan Xiu address her as such. The anger on her face instantly froze as she stared at him with an inconceivable expression. She took the phone and asked, Don't tell me you have some sinister plot again? I'm telling you. This old lady will never be your driver in the future. She emphasized the word, coachman. I have something to ask of you. If you can promise me, you'll be my friend later, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Really? Ouyang Lulu was astonished. Tan Xiu promised seriously, more real than real gold. What do you want me to help you with? Ouyang Lulu said happily. It's not a big deal actually. Tan Xiu laughed. I was in a hurry to rush to Jingmen Island, but there were no more flights at the airport today. I heard from Xiao Xue that you have a private jet and she wants to take it to Jingmen Island. Xiao Xue, I of you. Are you going to help me? Xiao Xue then? You then of Lulu. You to me. A trace of sourness emerged in Ouyang Lulu's heart as she pretended to be dissatisfied. After saying that, she realized that her mentality was not right. She quickly said, "But, if you can call me something nice, I will rush to the airport immediately." Tan Xiu blinked. His mind was full of confusion. Tang Xiu blinked his eyes, his mind full of confusion. Tan Xiu blinked. His mind was full of confusion. Is this guy sick? Isn't she called Ouyang Lulu? Calling her Lulu was already very intimate and nice to hear, right? But I still want to say something nice? Ouyang Lulu told me to say something nice. What should I say? Tan Xiu turned to look at Gu Xiaoxue and asked with a puzzled expression. In fact, Gu Xiaoxue had heard the conversation between Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu. Seeing Tan Xiu's confused expression, she secretly rolled her eyes. She didn't know if Tan Xiu was really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. Ouyang Lulu's big missy temper was deliberately teasing him, yet he couldn't see it. However, Ouyang Lulu was usually proud like a princess. How could she make things difficult for her Grand Master this time? Could it be that her Grand Master made her a coachman before and she was unhappy? Gu Xiaoxue, whose emotions were completely blank, thought for a long time before she said in a low voice, "Grandmaster, you praised her for being very beautiful, praised her for having a good character, praised her for being lovable, praised her for being a flower blooming." Tan Xiu looked at Gu Xiaoxue with a strange expression and said according to what she had taught him, "Lulu, a great beauty. You're very beautiful and have a good character. You're popular and flowers bloom. You have a bodhisattva heart. You'll definitely take us to Jingmen Island, right?" At the side, Gu Xiaoxue admired her Grand Master to death. She didn't expect that Tan Xiu would actually repeat what she had just taught him. Couldn't he come up with something new? Couldn't he say something nicer? Gu Xiaoxue was well aware of Ouyang Lulu's character. She believed that Ouyang Lulu would never be satisfied after hearing those words. She would probably continue to make things difficult for Tan Xiu. At the other end of the phone, the angry expression on Ouyang Lulu's face finally vanished completely. She beamed with joy while holding the phone and said, "You're good at talking. This great aunt is in a good mood, so I'll reluctantly help you this time. Remember, you're my friend from now on. You must be the kind of confidant that I can talk about anything with, understand?" "Alright." Tan Xiu's answer was simple and clear. "Wait for me at the airport. I'll catch up immediately," said Ouyang Lulu. Tan Xiu put down his phone and looked at Gu Xiaoxue, saying, "Ouyang Lulu will be here soon. She asked us to wait for her here." Gu Xiaoxue's brain was a bit short-circuited. She looked at Tan Xiu with disbelief. She racked her brains but couldn't figure out why the proud princess Ouyang Lulu would forgive Tan Xiu so easily. Moreover, she even readily agreed to it. She suddenly had an illusion that her Grand Master had cast a spell on Ouyang Lulu. Half an hour later, Ouyang Lulu arrived with her black leather boots. She was wearing a shiny black leather coat, and even her cloak was black. When Tang Xiu saw Gu Xiaoxue dressed in white and Ouyang Lulu dressed in black, even though he didn't have the potential to be a prodigal son, he still felt his eyes lit up as he was amazed. "Do I look good?" Ouyang Lulu let out a charming smile and turned a circle in front of Tan Xiu. Her black windbreaker fluttered, making her look cool and handsome. Her wildness added more charm to her. "You look good." Tan Xiu didn't say anything against his heart at this moment, so he nodded and answered sincerely. Ouyang Lulu let out a satisfied smile and immediately walked to Gu Xiaoxue's side. She intimately held Gu Xiaoxue's arm and smilingly said, "Xiaoxue, have you finished talking about your business?" "Yeah." Gu Xiaoxue slightly nodded. Ouyang Lulu said with a smile, "If Tan Xiu dares to bully you, tell me. Although this guy is usually arrogant, he's warm-hearted and warm-hearted. I have plenty of ways to deal with him." "Lu, don't say that about Grandmaster." Gu Xiaoxue quickly said. "What?" Ouyang Lulu looked dazed and then rubbed her ears hard. "Auditory hallucination?" "It must be an auditory hallucination. Xiaoxue, Tan Xiu is really easy to bully. As long as he asks me for something, I can make him beg for mercy. Ouyang Lulu said. Gu Xiaoxue glanced at Tan Xiao and helplessly said, Lulu, Grand Master is broad-minded and really a good person. Don't ever say such words again. Or else I won't be happy. With a shocked expression, Ouyang Lulu pointed at Tan Xiao and exclaimed, You, what did you call Tan Xiao? You called him Grand Master? Did I just hear it wrong? Did you really call him Grand Master? How did he inexplicably become your Grand Master? Gu Xiaoxue nodded and solemnly said, He's indeed my Grand Master and also my Master's Master. Lulu, if you want to be friends with me later, you must respect my Grand Master. Ouyang Lulu was shocked by Gu Xiaoxue's words. She never dreamed that Tan Xiao turned out to be Gu Xiaoxue's Grand Master, her Master's Master. How old was Tan Xiao? Gu Xiaoxue was raised by her master, and her master should be at least twice her age, right? A woman in her 40s unexpectedly called Tan Xiao master? This, Gu Xiaoxue didn't explain again, and Tan Xiao naturally didn't explain either. Both of them kept silent and looked at Ouyang Lulu's shocked expression. Xiaoxue, you haven't answered my question yet. After a while, Ouyang Lulu shook Gu Xiaoxue's arm and asked. I can't answer this question, said Gu Xiaoxue. Also, I hope this matter won't spread to the ears of a second person other than you. Even if it's your family. Ouyang Lulu found that there were too many secrets between Gu Xiaoxue and Tan Xiao. Her heart was scratched and her thirst for knowledge was extremely strong, but she was forcibly suppressed by Gu Xiaoxue's words. After being silent for a long time, she slowly nodded and said, I promise that this matter will rot in my heart. Tan Xiao said, Let's go. I'm in a hurry. Ouyang Lulu deeply looked at Tan Xiao. She felt that she couldn't see through Tan Xiao more and more. The magnetism that Tan Xiao exuded was getting more and more intense, deeply attracting her, making her want to uncover the layer of fog that shrouded Tan Xiao even more. At Star City Airport, Ouyang Lulu took Tan Xiao and Gu Xiaoxue through the VIP channel. After the airport staff drove the three of them to the parking apron, a silver-white small passenger plane appeared in front of Tan Xiao. It had a streamlined body with gorgeous red lines that formed a gorgeous peony pattern. Its wings were spread out like a big bird that had landed on the ground. A mature aura was exuding from her body as she held a stack of documents and waited under the ladder. Have you applied to the airport for takeoff? Ouyang Lulu asked. The application has been submitted and the reply is that we can take off in 15 minutes. The pilot and the attendant are already waiting in the cabin. All right. Ouyang Lulu complied and took Tan Xiao and Gu Xiaoxue to climb the ladder. The interior was luxurious, with soft carpets, spacious leather sofas, and exquisite high-end tables and chairs. Even though Tan Xiao didn't know the value of a private plane, he couldn't help but secretly exclaim in admiration after seeing the scene inside. This private plane was absolutely luxurious. How is it? My private plane is good, right? A proud expression hung on Ouyang Lulu's beautiful face. Her eyes swept over Tan Xiao's face again and again. It's not bad, Tan Xiao said lightly. With his eyesight, it was already very rare for him to say, not bad. Ouyang Lulu didn't understand his mentality, but Gu Xiaoxue's heart was as clear as a mirror. After all, Tan Xiao was once a supreme in the immortal world, a super powerhouse that stood above hundreds of millions of people. What kind of luxurious scene had he not seen? Chapter 140. Upon hearing this, Ouyang Lulu rolled her eyes at Tan Xiao and then excitedly took Gu Xiaoxue to visit her private jet. The interior of this private jet not only had a reception room, but also a bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, cloakroom, and the most extravagant thing was that it also had a separate bathroom. Gu Xiaoxue had always maintained a calm and indifferent appearance. Despite the luxury of the cabin, it still couldn't bring the slightest fluctuation of emotion to her. Only when she occasionally glanced at Tan Xiao did her eyes reveal awe. In fact, not only was Ouyang Lulu curious about Tan Xiao, even Gu Xiaoxue was curious about Tan Xiao. She really wanted to know what was the difference between a supreme powerhouse who once stood above the myriad races and millions of immortals and ordinary people. At Jingmen Island Airport, It was already noon when the silver-white private jet landed on the airport apron. Just as the trio walked out of the airport, two middle-aged men with grim expressions came to them. "Little boss." Gu Xiaoxue slightly nodded and pointed at Tan Xiu, saying, Uncle On, Uncle Ah, this is Tan Xiu, the Everlasting Feast Hall's master. Treat him the same way you treat my master. Do you remember? Mr. Tang? Mo On and Mo looked at Tan Xiu with astonishment. They knew Tan Xiu. After all, Tan Xiu had caused a huge sensation in their Everlasting Feast Hall a few days ago. They had a deep reverence for Tang Xiu to begin with. Now that they heard the little boss's words, they chose to be obedient even though they didn't understand why. With respect, they said in unison, Big boss. Tan Xiu turned to look at Gu Xiaoxue and frowned. What do you mean by this? Grandmaster, this is what Master had instructed me to do, said Gu Xiaoxue. I'm just executing Master's order. Tan Xiu could only force a wry smile and looked at the Mo brothers. He nodded and didn't say anything more. Big boss, little boss, the car is ready. Are we going back to the Everlasting Feast Hall now? Let's return to the Everlasting Feast Hall, said Gu Xiaoxue. Ouyang Lulu looked at Gu Xiaoxue and then looked at Tan Xiu. Although she really wanted to follow them to the Everlasting Feast Hall, she realized that Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue must have important things to do, and it would be inappropriate for her to follow them. After hesitating for a moment, she could only suppress the curiosity in her heart. I'm going back to the Paradise Club. Come to the Everlasting Feast Hall if you have time. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. All right. Ouyang Lulu complied. She stood where she was, looking at the backs of Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue, and a sense of helplessness rose in her heart. Previously, she had sworn that she would never be Tan Xiu's coachman again. But with Tan Xiu's kind words, she found that she had foolishly become the coachman again. At the Everlasting Feast Hall. When the two cars entered the parking lot, Tan Xiu followed Gu Xiaoxue and walked towards a small Sikkim path in the distance. He discovered that he was heading towards the inner coastline of the sea. On the beach, Gu Xiaoxue untied the rope and floated to board the small boat. After boarding the boat, Tan Xiu asked with a puzzled expression, We're going out to sea? Is Yen in the sea? You'll know if you follow me, Grandmaster. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. The small boat didn't have any oars, but when the two of them stood on it, it moved without any wind and slowly moved toward the sea. After gliding for a kilometer, it stopped on the surface of the sea. Gu Xiaoxue's toes lightly touched the ground as her perfect body floated up and stopped a dozen meters above the sea. She then waved her arms and released a powerful energy wave. An array pattern? Tan Xiu's expression moved and he instantly released his spiritual sense. Whoosh! The surface of the sea was like being split by a knife as the seawater spread to both sides. Under the observation of Tan Xiu's spiritual sense, an array pattern fluctuation came out from the bottom of the sea. It's the Cosmos Blue Sea Array. Tan Xiu sighed. There was an array manual of the Jade Sea Cosmos Array in his library. Gu Xiaoxue floated down and stood side by side with Tan Xiu. Excitement flashed in her eyes as she respectfully said, This is the Jade Sea Cosmos Array laid out by my master, Grandmaster. My master is 100 meters under the sea. Please come with me. All right. Tan Xiu followed behind Gu Xiaoxue and rushed toward the passage that was split open in the sea. 100 meters under the sea. An exquisite pagoda with a height of more than 10 meters exuded a lustrous luster. Spiritual qi from all directions on the seabed flooded into the exquisite pagoda's interior like a tide. At a glance, Tan Xiu recognized that this was the magic tool he had given to Gu Yenner in the past. It was a treasure from the immortal world that could be used for both offense and defense. Gu Xiaoxue stopped in front of the pagoda's door. She turned to look at Tan Xiu and said, Grandmaster, you gave this magic tool to my master, so you should know how to open the pagoda's door. I'll let you open it. Tan Xiu nodded. His fingers pinched into a lotus seal and he shouted in a low voice, Heaven and earth, only I am supreme. However, as Tan Xiu's voice faded away, the pagoda's door remained motionless. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before a wry smile appeared on his face. He shook his head and said, I've lost all my magic power and my strength is less than 1,000th of what it used to be. I can't open the pagoda's door using normal methods." With that said, he walked to the pagoda's door. His fingers stroked the golden dragon carved on the wall next to the pagoda's door and knocked it 9 times in a regular pattern. Suddenly, the pagoda's door, which had been motionless just now, slowly opened. "This is?" Gu Xiaoxue looked at Tan Xiu's method in amazement and confirmed Tan Xiu's identity in her heart. The reason why she asked Tan Xiu to open the exquisite pagoda's door was also a test. After all, it was better to prove it with one's own eyes than to say it out loud. When Tan Xiu said the mnemonic to open the pagoda's door, she understood that Tan Xiu's identity should not be wrong. Seeing that Tan Xiu used another method to open the pagoda's door, a method that even she didn't know about, made her secretly surprised. "How did you do it, Grandmaster?" Tan Xiu smiled and said, "This exquisite pagoda was given to Yener by me in the past, so I naturally have other ways to open it. In fact, Yener also knows how to do it." Gu Xiaoxue suddenly understood and said with respect in her eyes, "Let's go in, Grand Master. Master Chi's inside." Tan Xiu nodded and stepped into the pagoda's door. In an instant, Tan Xiu felt a piercing chill. The temperature inside the pagoda was more than 10 times colder than the outside world. Even though he was a cultivator, he still couldn't help but shiver. "Who is it?" A voice filled with vicissitudes of life reverberated inside the pagoda. An old woman with a dragon head walking stick and a golden cloak appeared in front of Tan Xiu in the blink of an eye. "Old Ji, don't be rude." Gu Xiaoxue floated over and said in a solemn voice. The old woman's expression changed slightly, nodding at Gu Xiaoxue and said in a solemn voice, "Young lord, Master once said that other than you, no one is allowed to enter the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. What is the purpose of you bringing an outsider here?" Gu Xiaoxue pointed at Tan Xiu and said, "He's the person Master is looking for." "What?" The old woman's eyes shrunk as she stared at Tan Xiu in horror. Tan Xiu looked at her from head to toe and said nonchalantly, "A mere succubus race bloodline dares to act presumptuously in front of this honored one? If I remember correctly, if it wasn't for my protection, the entire succubus race would have been slaughtered by Thousand Eyes Lord, right?" Plop. The old woman's body trembled and she directly knelt in front of Tan Xiu. Just as Tan Xiu said, if it wasn't for Tan Xiu coincidentally coming across the succubus race who were being slaughtered and helping them, their succubus race would have most likely been erased from the immortal world. Aside from their master, Guyan, no one else on earth knew about this matter. Ji Qimei pays respect to Venerable Lord. Tan Xiu lightly said, "Get up. Your injuries are very serious. If you don't treat them in time, I'm afraid you won't last for more than a few years." Ji Qimei bitterly said, "This junior knows. But resources on earth are scarce and there are no holy medicines to take. It's already a great fortune for me to be able to persist until now. Young Lord can find Venerable Lord. If Master wakes up, she will definitely be very happy. Wake up." Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and asked in a deep voice, "What's wrong with Yen?" This, Ji Qimei's complexion slightly changed. She lowered her head and didn't speak. With a bit of bitterness, Gu Xiaoxue said, "Grand Master, Master's injuries are more serious than Elder Ji's. She has fallen into a coma countless times in the past decade. Even if she wakes up, she can only hold on for half a day before falling into a coma again." Twilight nightmare? Recalling what Gu Xiaoxue once said, Tan Xiu's heart shook violently. Almost without hesitation, he flew toward the stairs. The exquisite pagoda had a total of 7 floors. Apart from the first floor where a lot of refining materials were stored, the second to the 6th floors were completely empty. Tan Xiu's speed was extremely fast. When he appeared on the 7th floor, the chill in the surrounding air turned more severe. His eyes fell on a jade-like ice bed. A breathtakingly beautiful woman in a white dress and black hair was quietly lying on the bed. She looked to be in her 20s. It's her. After seeing that stunning face, Tan Xiu's heart palpitated even more. Although Gu Yenner's appearance was a bit older than when she disappeared, he couldn't forget that familiar face even after thousands of years. Disciple. Tan Xiu came to the ice bed and gently lifted Gu Yin, with trembling hands, carefully hugging her in his arms. A familiar face, a familiar scent. Never in his wildest dreams did Tan Xiu expect that he could see this disciple he raised again. Scenes of the past emerged in his mind. Master, Yen is hungry. Can you pick the green jade immortal fruit for me? Master, Yen has learned the butterfly fluttering immortal dance. Can I dance it for you? Master, Yen-er's cultivation has broken through again. It won't be long before Xian-er breaks through to the true immortal stage. At that time, Xian-er will have the ability to protect Master. Master, the flowing dress you bought for me is so beautiful. Yen-er likes white clothes, Master. Tan Xiu's eyes were a bit moist. His palm gently stroked Gu Yen-er's delicate cheeks. He slowly sat on the edge of the ice bed and looked at Ji Qimei and Gu Xiaoxue, asking in a deep voice, "Tell me everything." Chapter 141. Ji Qimei respected Tan Xiu like a deity. After hearing the inquiry, she respectfully replied, "Venerable Lord, this subordinate doesn't know much about Master's matters. I only know that she's been searching for you for thousands of years. Later on, Master heard that you were plotted against by others and your soul was scattered. She didn't believe it, so she rushed through the heavenly path 9 times and finally learned the star-pushing divination art under Heavenly Emperor Tianji. Master paid an extremely terrible price and finally managed to deduce some information about you. However, because it wasn't easy to find this place, Master sneaked into Time Island and schemed against Shade Demon Zhu Wushou's direct disciple and finally obtained the space magic array. After Master exhausted all her wealth and finally arranged the space magic array, Shade Demon Zhu Wushou found us and brazenly attacked us. Master was even hit by Zhu Wushou's Twilight Nightmare. A murderous glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he asked in a deep voice, "If I remember correctly, Gu Xiaoxue said that you came to Earth decades ago, but I came back to Earth only a year ago. What's going on?" Master's comprehension of the laws of space and time has reached a very profound level, Ji Qimei replied. But before we came here, we were affected by Zhu Wushou's Twilight Nightmare, which caused us to deviate in the long river of time and arrive decades earlier. The doubts in Tan Xiu's heart were all dispelled after he got the answer. He finally understood why the Everlasting Feast Hall had the Water Block Dragon Array and the Thousand Revolution Array. It turned out that everything was because of Gu Yen. She racked her brains and paid an extremely painful price to personally come to Earth. Tan Xiu was not a man with a heart of stone. A tide of emotions surged inside his heart. His tender love for her made him hate Shade Demon Zhu Wushou. He vowed that one day when he returned to the immortal world, he would make Zhu Wushou pay the most miserable price. Standing at the side, Gu Xiaoxue looked at Tan Xiu's appearance with mixed feelings. She knew her master's wish and obsession for thousands of years. Now, even though Master was still unconscious, to be able to be held in the Grand Master's arms, Master would probably feel happy no matter who was unconscious, right? Yeah. When can she wake up? Tan Xiu turned to look at Ji Qimei and asked in a deep voice. "The last time Master woke up was 3 months ago," said Ji Qimei respectfully. "According to the previous pattern, there should be 3 more months. In addition, too many soul-suppressing stones had been consumed. The remaining soul-suppressing stones could only last its master for 2.5 years. If we don't get the soul-suppressing stone after 2.5 years, I'm afraid Master will." Soul-suppressing stone? A god's stone to suppress one's divine soul and protect one's life. After that, he took a taxi and went to Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. He originally planned to go to Xingqing No. 1 High School early in the morning, but it was delayed again. Furthermore, his plan to give Yuan Chuling and the others supplementary lessons last night in Jingmen Island had fallen through. After coming to the VIP ward, Tan Xiu looked at his mother, who was preparing to eat. He then asked with a smile, "Mom, how's your recovery? Do you still feel pain?" "It's not painful anymore," Su Lingyun said with a smile. "Xiu, how come you're here again? Aren't you busy with your school courses?" "Actually, we've already finished our high school courses, and the rest of the month is the revision stage," Tan Xiu said. My grades are good and I've mastered all the knowledge in the textbook. Miss Han knew about your situation and thought that coming out won't affect my studies, so I came to the hospital. Yeah, Mom knows. Su Lingyun said with a smile. Last night, Miss Han came to the hospital. She also gave you a thumbs up when talking about your grades. I know that our Xiao is the most promising one. That's right, have you eaten yet? Come and eat with Mom. I'm not hungry. Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, I still have to go back to school, so I'll just eat something when I go back. But you said that Miss Han came? I didn't tell her your ward number. She should have heard it from someone else. Su Lingyun said with a smile. While they were talking, the VIP ward's door was knocked, and President Li Hongji stood at the door with a smiling face. He was holding a portfolio in his hand. President Li has come. Please have a seat. Su Lingyun didn't have the time to eat and quickly struggled to get up. Li Hongji quickly said, You're welcome. Just sit down. Tan Xiao, I've helped you get your physician's qualification certificate. Although the leaders of the health bureau were quite dissatisfied, they approved it with my guarantee. You'll be a real doctor in the future. When are you going to come to our Chinese medical hospital to give medical services? Tan Xiao took the portfolio and took out the certificate from inside. After looking at it, he said, Wait until my college entrance test is over. I'm going to face the college entrance test soon. If I come to give medical services now, I'm afraid my mother won't agree. Tan Xiao shook his head and said, Miss Han, you let me come to class 10 because you trust me. Of course, there's also a bit of affection in it. I haven't lost your face since I came to class 10, have I? The reason why I didn't come to class is that I really have something important to do. I'm going to face the college entrance test soon, and I know the priorities of the matter. So, you don't have to always emphasize whether I skip class or not. Han Qingwu angrily said, Then you use my trust in you to indulge yourself like this? Tan Xiao emphasized, If I want to indulge myself, I can ask for leave from the school. Moreover, even the principal has no choice but to agree to my reason. I can understand that you're angry now, but I want you to listen to my explanation before you vent your anger. You're a teacher and a class leader, so you shouldn't have this kind of magnanimity, right? Han Qingwu was so angry that she laughed. She pointed at Tan Xiao and said, Good, good, good. Since you said you have a reason, then I'd like to hear it. Say it. Tan Xiao raised the portfolio in his hand and slowly said, I'm smart enough, and studying is too easy for me. So I usually read some medical books to pass the time in my spare time. Not long ago, the school gave me a week-long vacation, so I went to Jingmen Island. There, I accidentally saved a person, a little girl with a strange disease. The little girl's mother once took her daughter to visit famous doctors everywhere. Even the president of our Star City Chinese Medical Hospital was helpless against the little girl's strange disease. When my mother was hospitalized, the president of the Chinese Medical Hospital, Li Hongji, learned that I cured the little girl and personally received me. He hoped that I could work in the Chinese Medical Hospital and gave me very good treatment. I never thought of becoming a doctor when I grow up, so I declined him. Han Qingwu sneered and said, You're lying. Keep lying. Tan Xiao stuffed the portfolio into Han Qingwu's hand and said, Whether you believe it or not, what I said is the truth. I refused him, but he didn't give up and begged me again and again. Finally, I promised him that I would go to the Chinese Medical Hospital after the college entrance test. But, you also know that the doctors in the hospital need to take the medical qualification certificate. This is the certificate that he helped me get. Han Qingwu opened the portfolio with a skeptical expression. When she took out the certificate stamped with the big steel seal of the Health Bureau, disbelief was revealed in her eyes. This certificate is real? Tan Xiao took out his mobile and found Li Hongji's cell number. He handed it to Han Qingwu and said, It's really the number of the president of the Chinese Medical Hospital. If you don't believe me, you can call him now to confirm whether what I said is true or not. Miss Han has never eaten in the cafeteria with any male. That brat actually has such a blessing. I'm really pissed off. How come I'm not the one having lunch with Miss Han? Whether it was his previous life or this life, Tan Xiao had suffered the attention of others countless times. Therefore, he didn't care about those pairs of curious, surprised, and angry eyes. Looking at Han Qingwu busily getting his meal and paying for it, he naturally chose to accept it. This was the compensation for being reprimanded by her just now. Tan Xiu happily sat in front of Han Qingwu. He picked up the chopsticks and prepared to eat while thinking magnanimously. Halfway through the meal, Yuan Chuling, Qing Yannan, Xia Wanfan, and Li Shaoqian hurriedly rushed to the cafeteria. I was wondering who was so lucky to have a meal with Miss Han. It turns out to be you, eldest brother. I say, eldest brother, you're finally back. We went to your house yesterday, but unfortunately, you weren't there. We couldn't even reach your phone. You won't leave us hanging tonight, right? Yuan Chuling sat next to Tan Xiu and called out while holding his shoulder. Tan Xiu pushed his arm away and lightly said, "We'll continue tonight." Cheng Yannan's eyes sparkled with extraordinary splendor as she excitedly said, "No problem. We'll be there on time tonight. We've prepared the textbooks for the 1st to the 3rd year." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I know. If there's nothing else, you go back to the classroom first. I'll go back after eating." "All right." Qing Yannan nodded. Looking at Yuan Chuling, who still wanted to say something, she directly pulled him up and walked outside the cafeteria in large strides. Han Qingwu raised her eyelids and unhurriedly said, "I didn't expect that you're so popular. I hope your supplementary lessons for them are really effective." Chapter 143. After lunch, Tan Xiu returned to the classroom. 10 minutes before the first afternoon class, Kang Xia called and told Tan Xiu that the company's employee recruitment had come to an end and the overall framework of the company had been completed. She also sent the address of the company's rented office building to Tan Xiu's mobile phone. It was difficult for Tan Xiu to go out during the day, so he told Kang Xia that she could go there after school. After ending the call, the first thing that came to his mind was the healthcare products. He had the formula of the product, but if he wanted to make it into a healthcare product, he must remix the Chinese medicine ingredients and adjust the efficacy. At present, not only was Kang Xia waiting for the sample, but even Long Jinglin was also waiting. After all, the earlier the product was developed, the more he could start the entire production, packaging, marketing, sales, and other plans. Tan Xiu spent the 3 afternoon classes in a trance. He was constantly calculating the proportion of the healthcare product formula, the size of the bottle, the effect of the bottle, and so on. Ring, ring, ring. As the last afternoon class was over, Tan Xiu packed up his things and prepared to rush to the magnificent Tang Corporation rented by Kang Xia. Although he had handed over the power of the company to Kang Xia, but no matter what, he was still the big boss behind the scenes of the magnificent Tang Corporation. If he didn't know where the company was, it would be unreasonable. "Eldest brother, I'll go with you. I'll freeload a meal at your house tonight." A trace of a sinister smile hung on Yuan Chuling's face as he said with a mischievous smile. Tan Xiu snappily said, "My house is not a restaurant. If you want to eat, go back to your house." Yuan Chuling thickened his face and said, "Who said your house is not a restaurant? I've been there. Besides, your housekeeper, that big sis Mu, has a very high cooking level. If I don't freeload a meal, I'll feel sorry for my mouth and stomach." "I'll go too." Cheng Yannan, who was sitting in the front row, had been listening to the conversation between Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling, so she turned around and said with a smile. Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, "I have something to do later, so I'll have to delay a lot of time." Yuan Chuling was confused and asked, "Eldest brother, where are you going?" Tan Xiu said, "I'll go to the medicinal herbs market first, then I'll go to another place." Yuan Chuling said, "Boss, why do I feel that your whereabouts have been uncertain recently? You seem very mysterious. Are you doing something big in secret?" "No, I want to go with you. I'm not afraid to eat at a gala. It's better to eat when you're hungry." "Agreed," Cheng Yannan said. Tang Xiu helplessly said, "Are you too dogskin plaster? Fine, fine, fine. If you want to follow me, then follow me. However, only the two of you will know about my affairs." I don. Eldest Mu. "No brother." Cheng Yannan and Yuan Chuling answered simultaneously. After leaving the campus, Tang Xiu directly stopped a taxi outside the campus gate. Soon after, the trio arrived at the Star City Medicinal Herbs Market. Tang Xiu bought a lot of medicinal herbs according to the Chinese medicine formula for the healthcare products. Eldest brother, why did you buy so many medicinal herbs? Don't tell me it's for the soup? Yuan Chuling asked with a confused expression while carrying the medicinal herbs Tang Xiu bought. Some are for soup but some aren't. Don't ask about it. Don't ask about this for now. You'll naturally find out later. Yuan Chuling rolled his eyes and snappily said, Eldest brother, you don't need to be so mysterious, do you? My curiosity has been piqued by you. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he slowly said, If you want the answer, ask less. Ask less, listen more, see more, and you will get the answer. It's getting late, let's go. Star City, Eastern Golden Seat. This was the most prosperous business center in the entire Star City, and it was only a street away from the Long's dining hall. This nearly 50-story building was contracted by the major companies in Star City. Even if they didn't set up their headquarters here, they would still rent a floor here for their branch offices. The 41st and 42nd floors were rented by the magnificent Tang Corporation and had signed a 2-year lease contract. Each floor had an area of 6,000 square meters. Whether it was the office or the public office area, it was exceptionally spacious and bright. In the elevator, Yuan Chuling looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression. His Yuan family also had a branch office here, but it wasn't the core business, but the advertising company established by his mother. Eldest brother, why did you bring us here? Yuan Chuling hesitated several times before he finally couldn't help but ask. Tan Xiu secretly rolled his eyes inwardly. With Yuan Chuling's temperament, he knew that he wouldn't be able to hold himself from asking. However, Tan Xiu didn't intend to explain and lightly said, Do you still remember what I said before? Ask less, listen more and see more. Yuan Chuling gave a middle finger to Tan Xiu and directly turned his face to the side. The elevator quickly ascended to the 41st floor. When the elevator door opened, Andy's delicate and lovely face appeared outside the door with a smile on the corner of her mouth. The moment she saw Tan Xiu, she gave a 90-degree bow. Her open collar revealed the deep ravine on her chest incisively and vividly. Hello, boss. Tan Xiu slowly nodded. After stepping out of the elevator, he asked, Where's Kong Xia? Andy's eyes were sparkling as she said with a faint smile, Chief Kong is in her office. The 41st floor has been cleaned up and can be used for the time being. The 42nd floor has just been cleaned up and can be used in a few days. Also, we don't have to worry about anything when there are people here during the day. But when we leave at night, what if someone sneaks into our company and steals our company's core information? Then we'll be too passive. Leave the security issue to me. Outside the door, Tan Xiu's voice sounded. Immediately after, Tan Xiu followed behind Andy and entered the office. Yuan Chuling and Qing Yannen followed behind them. Boss. Hello, boss. Kong Xia and Wei Zhongfen called out at the same time. Tan Xiu waved his hand and looked at Kong Xia coming out from her desk. He bluntly walked over and sat down. His fingers tapped on the desk as he said, Kong Xia is right. The company's core secrets must not be stolen. The security force is the most important. I'll deal with the 20 security guards. Kong Xia was astonished. Boss, you can find someone better than the Yinlan Security Company? Tan Xiu grabbed his cell phone, dialed a number and asked, Xiao Xue, how's the Everlasting Feast Hall's security team? Is it credible? Grandmaster, half of the restaurant's security team are experts trained by Master. Although they are not cultivators, their martial arts foundation is very profound. Any one of them is not much worse than those martial arts grandmasters. How many people? Master trained half of them, and I trained the remaining half. Send 20 of them to Star City tomorrow and wait for me at the Villa Complex in Southgate Town. I've set up a company, so I need trustworthy security guards. Understood. Tan Xiu hung up the phone and looked at Kong Xia, saying, I'll send some security guards to you tomorrow. What's the progress of the company now? Tell me. Kong Xia shot a deep look at Tan Xiu and said, After the security guards are dealt with, only the factory is left. We've investigated more than a dozen factories related to the cosmetics business and finally screened out 3. I'm going to go there myself tomorrow, and then I'll make further plans. Chapter 144. Today's monthly votes amounted to 170 chapters, rounded up to 200, so with the addition of 2 chapters and 2 guaranteed chapters, there will be a total of 4 chapters updated. Also, the Alliance is giving out red packets for monthly tickets. Each red packet contains 500 Chidian coins. Brothers and sisters with monthly tickets, don't miss it. Along with Kong Xia's report, Tan Xiao gradually learned about the development of the magnificent Tang Corporation. What made him satisfied was that Kong Xia was really capable. She had already prepared the preliminary work in a very short time. You did well. Tan Xiao praised and looked at Wei Zhongfeng. Kong Xia quickly said, Boss, I'm in need of manpower now, so I intend to let Wei Zhongfeng help me first. When the company is on the right track, I'll put him in the sales department. Tan Xiao said, Wei Zhongfeng, do you understand the meaning of my decision? If you can understand, maybe I will change my decision and let you directly become a senior executive of the company. After a moment of silence, Wei Zhongfeng respectfully said, Refine. Good, I'm very satisfied with your answer. Tan Xiao nodded. After being hammered and tempered 100 times, it became steel. It seems that Kong Xia was right, you really are a talent. As for the position, let Kong Xia rearrange it. Wei Zhongfeng's face lit up as he quickly nodded and said, Thank you, boss. Tan Xiao waved his hand, signaling Wei Zhongfeng to leave. He got up, walked to the sofa in the office, and sat down. Then, he casually waved his hand at the dumbfounded Yuan Chuling and Qing Yannan, who was frowning. After that, he said to Kong Xia, who was sitting across him, I invited you to work for me, and I also gave you the authority according to your wishes. But I have a few requirements. If you can do it, it proves that my judgment is correct. If you can't, it means that there's a problem with your ability. Kong Xia's complexion changed as she replied with a serious expression, Please tell me. I'll give you 3 or 4 months, said Tan Xiao. Before September 1st, everything in the company had to be ready. The production line at the factory had to be completed, and a large number of products had to be stocked up. My first request is to open the sales network nationwide on September 1st. So urgent. Kong Xia was startled and asked in surprise. Tan Xiao said, I'm short of money. I need money. Kong Xia pondered for 2 minutes. A firm look flashed in her eyes as she nodded and said, I'll do it according to your request. Tan Xiao said, The second requirement is that within half a year, I want us to have our own large-scale factory, not only a cosmetics factory, but also a healthcare factory. I can do it. Kong Xia's reply was decisive and decisive. Kong Xia looked at Qing Yannan with interest and said with a smile, I didn't expect my name to be so resounding. This little beauty has also heard of my great name. It's my honor. Qing Yannan suddenly stood up and cried out in disbelief, How is this possible? How can you be Tan Xiao's subordinate? You're a business genius that countless large enterprises in the country want to hire. Tan Xiao asked lightly, What? You think I don't have the qualifications to hire Kong Xia? Qing Yannan instantly realized that she had said something wrong and quickly said, That's not what I meant. I'm just shocked that Kong Xia actually came to Star City and even worked for you. Tan Xiao, you don't know that my second uncle visited the thatched cottage 3 times and personally invited Kong Xia to work for him, but he was rejected every time. Tan Xiao asked with a puzzled expression, Who's your second uncle? Qing Yannan said, Cheng Jiangwo. Kong Xia said with a smile, Oh, so you're Qing Jiangwo's niece. Your uncle indeed visited me 3 times. Hoping that I can be the CEO of your Cheng family's company. However, your company's family is too strong, and it's too restrictive. Tan Xiao asked, Is the Cheng family very famous? Kong Xia said, It's quite famous. The Cheng family has a place among those big families in the imperial capital. Not only do they have great influence in the political world, but they also have an extraordinary position in the business world. If I remember correctly, Cheng Jiangwo also holds the title of Vice President of the Northern Chamber of Commerce. Tan Xiao looked at Qing Yannan with an astonished expression and asked, Your Cheng family is so famous in the imperial capital. How come you came to Star City to study? Also, how come your sister is working in Star City's criminal investigation unit? It's reasonable to say that with your status and background, it's better for you to develop in the imperial capital. Cheng Yannan was silent. As the saying goes, every family has its own difficulties. Her Cheng family was indeed a big family, but there were too many people they could talk to. If it wasn't for her grandfather, the Cheng family would have been torn apart. The undercurrent of big families was surging, and the phenomenon of power struggle was particularly serious. Her sister was even more unwilling to become a political sacrifice. After rejecting the family's proposal of marriage, she relied on her own ability to work in Star City, and she followed her sister here. Tan Xiu wasn't the kind of person who liked to get to the bottom of things. Seeing that Cheng Yannan didn't want to talk about it, he didn't continue to entangle this issue. He got up and looked at Kang Xia, saying, "I still have something to do tonight, so I'll go back first. I'll still say the same words, I'm relieved to hand the company over to you." A few minutes later, Tan Xiu left the magnificent Tang Corp along with Yuan Chuling and Cheng Yannan. Tonight, not only did he have to give Yuan Chuling's group of 4 tutoring courses, but he also had to find time to study the concoction of healthcare products. At the entrance of the Oriental Golden Seat, a Mercedes-Benz slowly stopped as a woman wearing black high-heeled shoes, lace stockings, a floral skirt, and pink sunglasses came out from the back seat. On the other side, a young man with a reluctant expression slowly got off the car. "Big sis, let's talk about it again. I'm really not cut out to do business. It's not a problem for me to casually fiddle with some second-hand goods to earn some pocket money. But managing such a big company like ours is completely impossible. Just do a good deed and let them go. Those 2 guys, Hu Wanjun and Xuerenfei, are still waiting for me at the Puma 4S store." Zhang Yongjin rubbed his temples and spoke with a helpless expression. Zhang Deqin squinted her eyes and lightly said, "You can go to the Puma 4S store. But I'll stop all your bank cards within 2 minutes after you leave, cutting off all your sources of income. Also, you've just made a female college student pregnant a few days ago. I'm also going to tell our parents about this matter, so you better get ready to be the groom." What? Zhang Yongjin's body trembled. He quickly squeezed out a smiling face and said, "Big sis, you're my biological sister. You can't cheat me like this. I'll listen to you. I'll listen to whatever you say. Isn't it just coming to work at our family's company? No problem. I'll do whatever you arrange." A smile was outlined on the corner of Zhang Deqin's mouth as she said, "You're willing to do this. I'm not forcing you." Yes. Zhang Yongjin secretly cursed in his heart, but he didn't dare to deny it. Ever since he was a child, his parents were too busy and didn't have much time to take care of him. But this big sister, who was older than him by 7 or 8 years, became his important guardian. She would take care of everything big or small. Suddenly, Zhang Yongjin's eyes focused and his footsteps stopped in an instant. His eyes fell on Tan Xiu, who just came out from the inside. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Zhang Yongjin snorted coldly. Although he was somewhat afraid of Tan Xiu, he felt that he had more courage with his big sister here at the moment. Zhang Deqin was keenly aware of her brother's abnormality. She followed his line of sight and her complexion slightly changed. Nowadays, there weren't many young people who could leave a deep impression on her, but Tan Xiu was definitely one of them. She still remembered the bet with Long Zhenyu last time. If it weren't for this young man in front of her, she would definitely be the final winner. Chapter 145. Tan Xiu's expression was tranquil. When he saw Zhang Deqin and Zhang Yongjin's siblings, he only glanced at them and directly ignored them. He had taught Zhang Yongjin many times, and he believed that he had already given him a big lesson. As long as the other party didn't provoke him, he didn't want to bother with this kind of young master. Reincarnation was a skill. Although this sentence was true, but no matter how good one's reincarnation skill was, if one didn't work hard the day after tomorrow, it would be difficult for one to become a great talent. In Tan Xiu's view, Zhang Yongjin belonged to this kind of person. "Tan Xiu, right? We meet again." Zhang Deqin stepped forward and blocked the path of the Tan Xiu trio. Tan Xiu frowned and lightly said, "Is there something?" Zhang Deqin said, "I've sent people to investigate you. You're a phoenix that flies out of a chicken coop. Even the two brothers, Long Zhengyu and Long Zhenglin, look up to you. However, I later got the investigation report saying that you bullied my younger brother. Is this true?" Tan Xiu glanced at Zhang Yongjin and indifferently said, "Your parents don't discipline him, so I discipline him for them. Is that wrong?" "You?" Zhang Deqin was furious. What she hated the most was people saying that they didn't have parents to discipline them. She even knew that it was taboo for her younger brother to say that. Sure enough, Zhang Yongjin's face was full of anger as he strode to the front of Tan Xiu. He raised his arm and pointed at Tan Xiu, angrily cursing, "Who the fuck do you think you are? Aren't you just relying on your fighting power? What's there to be arrogant about? Whether I have parents to discipline me or not, it's not up to you to comment." Tan Xiu secretly shook his head and said, "To tell you the truth, I really don't feel like paying attention to you. I won't make things difficult for you as long as you don't provoke me. Therefore, I advise you that I'll walk on the single log bridge and you walk on the open road. We'll mind our own business later. Otherwise, even if you have a bit of background, I can make you regret it." Zhang Deqin was so angry that she laughed and coldly said, "What a big tone. Even Long Zhengyu wouldn't dare to say such words to me, right? I want to know, where does a country bumpkin like you get the courage from?" Yuan Chuling took a step forward and looked at Zhang Deqin with hostility. He snorted and said, "Zhang family's eldest sister is even more arrogant. Tan Xiu is my brother. If you dare to cause trouble for him, don't blame me for beating you up so badly that even your parents won't recognize you." Zhang Deqin and Zhang Yongjin were attracted by Tan Xiu, so they didn't notice Yuan Chuling behind Tan Xiu. Now that they recognized Yuan Chuling's identity, the siblings revealed a trace of fear. However, the Zhang family was not inferior to the Yuan family, so they had nothing to fear. "No wonder you dare to be so arrogant and despotic in front of me. It turns out that apart from Long Zhengyu and his brother, you also have the support of the Yuan family's eldest young master. Tang Xiu, don't tell me you're a coward who always stands behind others?" Pa! Tan Xiu's footsteps moved and instantly appeared in front of Zhang Deqin, slapping her face. Zhang Deqin staggered back a few steps as she raised her hand to cover her slapped cheek. Disbelief was written all over her face. Never once had she ever dreamed that Tang Xiu would be so overbearing to the point of immediately hitting her without saying a word. At this moment, she secretly regretted that she didn't bring bodyguards. However, her reaction was fast enough. Her eyes immediately locked on several building security guards not far away and shouted, "Security guards, I'm Zhang Deqin, the general manager of the Zhang Group. Someone is committing murder here. Don't tell me you don't care?" Upon hearing this, several security guards immediately ran to her side. They all knew Zhang Deqin's identity, so their eyes were filled with anger as they quickly surrounded Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling. "Who are you people? Don't you know the rules of the Golden Seat of the East? Put your hands on your head and squat down. Else, don't blame us for being impolite." One of the security captain, a middle-aged man, pointed his electric baton at Tan Xiu and angrily shouted. Tan Xiu coldly smiled and said, "It's not your turn to ask about our identity. Get the hell out of here if you don't want to bring trouble to yourself." "You?" The security captain was stunned. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu would be so arrogant. However, he had been working as a security guard in the Oriental Golden Seat for 5 or 6 years. He had seen countless big shots and naturally knew that he couldn't afford to provoke them. Because he didn't know Tan Xiu's identity, he didn't know what to do for a moment. Zhang Deqin angrily shouted, "What are you waiting for? They are committing murder here. As security guards, don't tell me you don't care. Break this brat's legs. I'll bear all the consequences." Several security guards looked at each other. As the security captain silently nodded, they immediately waved their electric batons and rushed toward Tan Xiu. "You're overestimating yourself." Tan Xiu took the lead the moment when Yuan Chuling was about to pounce on him. His fist was very fast. Even though he used less than 1/10 of his strength, it still hit the security captain's face in an instant and sent him flying upside down. At the same time, he kicked the other security guard, causing him to scream as he fell to the ground and fainted. Bam, bam. The remaining 2 security guards were also knocked down by Tan Xiao in just 2 breaths. You. Zhang Deqin's eyes widened as she looked incredulously at the 4 security guards, who were usually powerful and powerful. Yet, in just a few seconds, they were all knocked down by Tan Xiao. In a flash, she was a bit afraid of Tan Xiao. She was afraid that Tan Xiao wouldn't be willing to let this matter go at this moment and would also beat her and her brother up. Tan Xiao indifferently said, "Considering that this is the first time you offended me, I'll give you a chance. Slap yourself 3 times and get the hell out of here. Else, I'm sure you're well aware of what will happen to you." Zhang Yongjin took a step forward as he stared at Tan Xiao and angrily shouted, "Surname Tang, I know you're powerful, but don't be too arrogant. We're the ones in the wrong this time. We shouldn't have taken the initiative to provoke you. I can slap myself, but I'll slap myself 3 times. How about it? Do you think you have the qualifications to bargain?" Tan Xiao sneered. 6 slaps. I'll slap myself. Zhang Yongjin angrily shouted. Put, 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 put. The loud slaps echoed at the entrance of the Oriental Golden Seat. Many office workers who were passing by all saw this scene. Tan Xiao frowned. He looked at the furious Zhang Deqin and then at Zhang Yongjin. After a moment of silence, he said, "I originally thought that you're just a good-for-nothing trash. But I didn't expect that you still have some guts of a man. You didn't abandon your sister and ran away. Moreover, you're willing to stand in front of her to protect her. Forget it. This matter ends here. If you take the initiative to provoke me again, then don't blame me for being impolite." After saying that, he then walked toward the road outside. Yuan Chuling looked at Tan Xiao with eyes full of admiration. He didn't expect that Tan Xiao would be so powerful that he could knock down 4 robust security guards in just a few seconds. Immediately, he gave Zhang Deqin and Zhang Yongjin a middle finger and left with a face full of disdain. Cheng Yannan had been silent all along, paying attention to the development of the situation. She also didn't expect that Tan Xiao would take the initiative to act, and even win in such an overbearing manner. However, even though she didn't know Zhang Deqin and Zhang Yongjin, she believed that they wouldn't let this matter go after being humiliated at this moment. Perhaps they would retaliate against Tan Xiao. Alas! She sighed inwardly and quickly chased after them. Zhang Deqin's complexion was ashen. A look of resentment appeared in her eyes as she looked at the back of Tan Xiao's group of 3 leaving. She then took out her mobile and dialed a cell number. "Tianxiang, my younger brother was beaten. The other party also almost beat me. It's at the entrance of the Oriental Golden Seat. I'll wait for you at the company." Zhang Yongjin was also full of hatred toward Tan Xiao. Upon hearing the content of his sister's phone call, his eyes suddenly lit up as he said with a pleasantly surprised expression, "Sis, you want my future brother-in-law to act. If he acts, he'll definitely beat Tan Xiao until he pisses his pants and cries for his parents." Zhang Deqin coldly smiled. She looked at Zhang Yongjin's red and swollen cheeks and spoke with a distressed expression, "Is it painful? Do you want to go to the hospital?" Zhang Yongjin shook his head and said, "I'm fine, sis." Zhang Deqin nodded and hatefully said, "Letting Tianxiang clean him up is just the first step. I'll retaliate against him countless times later and kick him out of Star City. Just you wait. He's just a bastard who thinks he knows a few capable friends and dares to be so arrogant. I'll let him know the consequences of offending us." Although Zhang Yongjin was a playboy, he was not a fool. He hesitated for a moment before he spoke in a low voice. "Sis, Long Zhengyu owes Tan Xiao a huge favor. And now, Tan Xiao also has Yuan Chuling by his side. In case the Long and Yuan families join hands, Zhang Deqin sneered. "Do you think those 2 families will go to war with our Zhang family just for a little brat? If Long Hanwen and Yuan Zhengxian aren't fools, they'll clearly know the consequences of fighting with our Zhang family. Even if they can defeat our Zhang family, they won't feel good either." Zhang Yongjin hesitated for a moment before he asked in a low voice, "Sis, how about we send someone to investigate that brat's identity again? In case he has some other background, we can also prepare in advance." Zhang Deqin sneered, "No need to investigate again. The people I sent before are very capable. They've investigated that brat's background very clearly. You can rest assured. All right. Zhang Yongjin nodded after he heard it. However, he was still a bit uneasy. Perhaps it was because he had been cleaned up by Tan Xiu many times that he was somewhat afraid of Tan Xiu from the bottom of his heart. Sis, let's not go to the company today, shall we? You can give me the papers you want tomorrow. Since we're going to deal with Tan Xiu, I think it's better to pull Hu Wanjun and Xuerenfei. The two of them also hate that brat to the point that their teeth itch. If they know that you've personally sent people to deal with him, they'll definitely help you from the side. Zhang Yongjin said in a low voice. Zhang Deqin pondered for a moment before she praised, Yongjin, you're right. If the Hu and Xue families are involved in this matter, then even if the Long and Yuan families want to stand up for that brat, they'll have to think twice. Go. Find them and tell them to come to the company to see me. All right. Zhang Yongjin complied. He covered his face and quickly left. Chapter 146. By the time Tan Xiu returned to Southgate Town, dinner had already been prepared. To his surprise, not only did he have a few more mouths to eat, but he also saw some unexpected people. A smile hung on Li Liping's face. Her eyes swept over Yuan Chuling and Qing Yannen, and then fell on Tan Xiu's face. She then said with a smile, Mr. Tang, I took the liberty to visit you. I came here because I found something important, so I want to discuss it with you. Is it about Gu Yin's study? Tan Xiu asked. Li Liping nodded and said, yes. The 3 teachers of our training class found an important problem after they trained Gu Yin. Therefore, we reformulated the teaching plan. Would you like to take a look at it now? Tan Xiu waved and said, you haven't eaten yet, right? Since you've come, let's eat together. This, Li Liping was a bit hesitant. Mu Qingping said with a smile, yeah, I've cooked a lot of dishes. If Boss Li and the 3 teachers don't mind, have a meal with us. I'm very grateful to you for tutoring my daughter's homework. This meal is my way of expressing my gratitude. Li Liping nodded and said with a smile, then we'll respectfully accept. Gu Yin trotted to Tan Xiu's side. She held Tan Xiu's hand and said with a grin, Master, I found that I've become smarter. I've learned a lot of the knowledge in the textbook by myself. I can also remember all the knowledge taught by the 3 teachers. Tan Xiu smiled as he stroked Gu Yin's small head and said, you've done a good job. In order to reward you, Master has decided to give you a set of test papers every month to observe your progress. Gu Yin replied with a grin. After dinner, Tan Xiu called Yuan Chuling and Qing Yannan to the conference room and instructed them to review first while waiting for the arrival of Xia Wanfen and Li Shaoqian. Subsequently, he went to Gu Yin's room on the 2nd floor. When he saw the middle-aged teacher teaching Gu Yin, he looked at Li Liping and then turned around and walked out of the door. In the living room on the 1st floor, Tan Xiu and Li Liping were sitting on the sofa, tasting the fragrant tea sent by Mu Qingping. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he keenly discovered that Yuan Chuling and Qing Yannan were stealthily looking towards the living room from the corridor. Moreover, both of their ears were pricked up. It was obvious that they wanted to eavesdrop on the conversation between him and Li Liping. Mr. Tang, this is the lesson plan that we have reformulated. We were supposed to give it to you yesterday, but we couldn't contact you, so I came here in person today. Li Liping handed over a folder and said softly. After receiving it, Tan Xiu took out the plan and read it. Then he nodded and said, I have no opinion on the study plan you've drawn up. After all, those teachers are the ones who teach you. What I want to ask is, how is Yinin's learning progress? Will she be able to adapt to accelerated education? If we hadn't talked to Yinin's mother, we wouldn't have believed that she was only in the 2nd grade. She's too smart. I've seen at least 9,999 children, but I've never seen such a smart child. She's a fast learner, so fast that our teachers can't keep up with her pace. A satisfied smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he said, if that's the case, then I'll have to trouble the teachers of your company. I won't say many words of thanks, but I'll show it with my actions. Just name your price. I'll transfer it to you now. There will be 3 teachers teaching every month, and each teacher will be paid 20,000 yuan. That is to say, 60,000 yuan per month. There will be more than 3 months until September 1st, so we'll charge a total of 180,000 yuan for 3 months. Just look at the price. No problem, Tan Xiu happily said. As long as there's no problem with your teaching, the price is negotiable. Quickly. Tan Xiu then transferred 180,000 yuan to Li Liping's account using his mobile phone. Li Liping got up and said with a smile, Mr. Tang, we've talked about everything. Let's see the results of our child's learning. I won't disturb you any longer. Goodbye. Tan Xiu sent Li Liping out of the door and watched her disappear outside the courtyard. Then, he turned his head and lightly said, Have you two heard enough? Come out. Yuan Chuling and Qing Yannin came out with a surprised look on their faces. Qing Yannin curiously asked, Tan Xiu, how did you know we were eavesdropping? Do you have X-ray vision? Or clairvoyant hearing? I have a 360-degree detector with no blind spots, Tan Xiu snappily said. You can also call it X-ray vision. It doesn't matter who's wearing clothes or not wearing clothes in front of me. Go to hell. Cheng Yannan's pretty face turned red as she shyly cursed and turned around to run to the conference room. Yuan Chuling watched Cheng Yannan's back disappear. Then he turned around and looked at Tan Xiu. He gave him a thumbs up and praised, Awesome, you're really awesome. Eldest brother, how come I didn't realize that your eloquence and intelligence are as good as yours? Tan Xiu said with a smile, I also didn't realize that your flattery skill has reached the point of perfection. Don't talk nonsense with me and quickly review your homework. I've made a military pledge in front of Miss Han. If your results in the college entrance test can't make everyone's eyes light up, then it'll be my failure. I guarantee I'll complete the task. Ever since Yuan Chuling knew that his parents' divorce was fake, he had been full of motivation in his studies. Now, with the help of Tan Xiu's peculiar remedial method, it made him even more full of fighting spirit. At Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Inside the VIP ward, Su Shangwen and his wife, Zhang Miyun, were standing in front of Su Lingyun. They looked down at Su Lingyun, who was lying on the hospital bed, with a mocking expression in their eyes. They were originally preparing to plot against Su Lingyun, but they didn't expect that even the heavens didn't like Su Lingyun, causing her to suffer an undeserved calamity. Little sister, Big brother doesn't want to criticize you. You're already an adult, yet you still can't let others worry about you? How are you now? You were beaten, right? Are you injured? I've been to your small restaurant, and it was smashed miserably by others. I think, according to your assets, you've already spent a lot of money to be hospitalized. I'm afraid you don't have the money to renovate it, right? Su Shangwen said with a strong, sarcastic tone. Zhang Miyun also had a gloating expression on her face as she said, That's right. When our family's Shangwen went to borrow money from you, you said that it was only 100,000 yuan. Your injuries aren't light, and I don't know which deity blessed you to be able to stay in such a high-class ward. You must be spending a lot of money every day, right? If you don't have the money to renovate the smashed restaurant, I think you might as well transfer it to us. If you don't have a place to go, it doesn't matter. After you recover, you can stay in the restaurant and work. Every month, I'll give you 2,000 yuan. It's not a small amount, right? 2,000 yuan? Su Lingyun looked at her brother and sister-in-law in pain. Her heart ached as if it was being pricked by needles. She knew many years ago that her brother and sister-in-law didn't like her, and they were very shameless. But she never dreamed that they would be shameless to this extent. Wasn't their request the same as looting a burning house? A salary of 2,000 yuan seemed not low, but the salary of the ordinary staff in her restaurant was higher than this. Get the hell out of here. Su Lingyun wanted to get up and drive them away, but she was injured. She knew that even if she got up, she was not their match. Su Shangwen's face turned cold. He glared at Su Lingyun and shouted, Su Lingyun, don't be so ungrateful. If you transfer that small restaurant to me, I may give you a sum of money, enough for you and your mother to live a comfortable life in the future. But if you insist on going about things the wrong way, you'll have to suffer in the future. Su Lingyun angrily said, Didn't you say you don't have money? Where will you get the money to give me? I don't have money now, but I can owe you. Su Shangwen said, I'll naturally give it to you when I have money. Do you think I'll lie to you? You, Shameless. Su Lingyun was sure that if she really transferred the restaurant to Su Shangwen, he would never give her money in the future. This was clearly extortion. It was the emotional card. She had seen it too many times from Su Shangwen. She was kind, but it didn't mean she was stupid. She knew too well what kind of character her brother was. The nurse at the side said, "The two of you, the patient needs to rest. Please leave." Zhang Myun glared and angrily looked at the nurse and scolded, "Mind your own business. This is our family's business. What does it have to do with you? Get the hell out of here and don't shout anymore." The nurse angrily said, "What are you talking about? If you don't leave, I'll immediately call the hospital's security." Zhang Myun sneered, "Try calling the security, will you? Believe it or not, I won't be driven away. I'll even make you lose your job, won't I? A nobody is a fucking nobody. I've given you some face and you've turned the sky upside down." Su Shangwen also coldly said, "Meddling in other people's family affairs. Is this how you behave? I advise you to do what you need to do. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences." The nurse had heard about Su Lingyun's matter and had also seen Tan Xiu. She knew that the dean attached great importance to Tan Xiu. If he knew about it, he would probably be on her side. She didn't take Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyun's threats seriously. She quickly took out her mobile phone and dialed the hospital's security number. "Okay, I'll be there soon." The one who answered the phone was the security captain, Chen Tao. The nurse hung up the phone and angrily said, "I've already informed the hospital's security. If you don't leave now, you'll be driven out." Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyun looked at each other with a bit of worry in their eyes. However, Su Shangwen was, after all, the boss of Shangwen Real Estate. Even though many of his old friends were avoiding him, there were still some people he could invite, such as a certain acquaintance of the Chinese Medical Hospital's vice president. "Hello, old Lu. I'm Su Shangwen. Shangwen Real Estate's Su Shangwen. Yeah, I say, what's going on with your hospital? I took your sister-in-law to the hospital's inpatient department to visit my younger sister. Because of a dispute over some family matters, your hospital's nurse humiliated us in every possible way. She even called the security to clean us up. Then I'll have to trouble you. I'll wait for you here. VIP ward, yes, the room number is..." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.